Survival Guide: Prepping to Stay Cool, Stay Warm, and Find Water by Jordan Gunner. Narrated by J.A. Leidig. Chapter 1: An Intro to Survival. When something goes extremely wrong, and you are a long way from getting some help, you must have the ability to make it through on your own for at least as long as it takes for somebody to save you. Making a rescue possible requires some actions before you leave home, like telling other people where you are going, your planned route, and when you expect to come back. But that's not what this book is about. Physical condition first. In case you just fell over and are now laying flat on your back, do a thoughtful examination before you start moving again. Can you wiggle your toes or your fingers? Where does it hurt the most? Is there any blood? If so, from where? Is there anything that's broken or sprained? Are you cold or warm? Maybe you are thirsty. Not only does this kind of exercise assist you to evaluate the degree of the predicament you are in regarding your physical condition, but it also makes you slow down for a minute and focus on solving your issue. If you do recognize a physical problem, use whatever initially help you can. Next, evaluate your surroundings. If you just made it through an avalanche or some other fast-moving thing that happened, you would rapidly examine the steadiness of your circumstance. In many cases, you may need to scramble out of damage's way, even before you examine your physical condition. After you get to a stable position, give some thought to where you are and what that suggests to your chances of survival. If you are in the desert and it gets cold in the evening, know that simple fact and that it indicates you will need some way to keep yourself warm. If your disaster took place in deep snow, you have one other set of conditions to evaluate in addition to keeping warm. Is anyone else around? Maybe you can call for help. Are there birds or other animals around? Where is the nearby water? If you were knowing as you moved along the trail, you should have already thought of the replies to lots of these kinds of questions. Finally, size up the devices you have with you. If you are backpacking, you probably have most of the tangible things you need to survive for at the very least some time. Think about what you have and how it can be used to resolve any of the concerns you already identified. You will want to fix the most critical needs first, like emergency treatment, but bear in mind your long-term needs like food, water, and shelter. You do not want to use your camping tent poles for a splint if you expect to really need your camping tent for shelter. Instead, search for pieces of wood or something else that may work as a splint. At this time, you can begin thinking more about the future and come up with a survival strategy. Use all your senses. Unnecessary rush makes waste. The concept behind creating a survival plan is to again slow yourself down so that you don't act in a rush and make your situation worse. Listen to the noises around you. Smell the smells. You should look at your environment. Look at the sky. Collect whatever info you can that may help you make the best choices as you prepare to take action. If you have been hiking through the woods for a while, you could not know your specific position. Go out to your map and GPS system if you have one and identify your location. Then write the GPS coordinates on the map. If your battery passes away, those coordinates could be a matter of life or death if you can communicate them to searchers. If you don't have GPS ability, use your compass to orient your map to your environments and find yourself that way. With this piece of information, you will have the ability to evaluate escape paths, find water, and normally end up being more knowledgeable about the environment in which you need to survive. Vanquish fear and panic. If you have peacefully and systematically gone through the above steps, you most likely are no longer in panic mode. A particular amount of fear might be present, But if you have prepared yourself with fundamental survival skills beforehand, and if you came geared up for your adventure, you should be okay. Be positive that you can deal with the circumstance as needed. Improvise. Use your imagination and invent new things if you must. If you are stuck in survival mode, you will be confronted with a continuous series of issues to resolve. Do you need a hammer? Utilize a rock. Need a plaster? What's in your pack? Will a leaf work? People have the capacity to develop and utilize tools for about anything that needs doing. Your role is to specify the issue, then find a solution using the material that's readily available to you. Value living. Your mental state is critical to your survival. In some cases, it's simple to forfeit. In a survival situation, that turns into death. Okay, it might be stressful, bothersome, uncomfortable, and even agonizing. But you really need to accept that. Be stubborn and overcome the steps required for your survival. Your will to live can make all the distinction. Imitate the natives. In a fight circumstance, it's important to be knowledgeable about the people in your area and what they're doing. In a wilderness survival situation, though, there will not be people around. Rather, you can assess any animal life around you. Are there deer trails or animal tracks that might lead you to water, shelter, and even food? Bear in mind that some animals can eat some things that are dangerous to people. Simply because an animal ate it does not necessarily mean that you should. It's better to have some knowledge about edible plants and fungi before you set out on your adventure. Keep your wits around you. Your wits are, of course, informed by your knowledge. Therefore, you must do some learning ahead of time. For one, study the 4 books we have offered. It's important that you keep studying these things. Second, if you practice what they preach, you'll become better at it, not just with knowledge, but also with experience. Chapter 2: Survival Water Filters, DIY Techniques. Is it okay to drink the water? I ask myself that question typically, and most of the time, the answer is no. There usually is the risk that germs, chemicals, and pathogens, particularly Giardia, are in the water. Rainwater or dew that's resting on non-poisonous plants like moss is safe to drink as is. There are a few methods to process drinking water to make it safer to drink. There is boiling it, using chemical cleansers, and purification. This book will supply ideas on how to make and use a survival water filter. What does a survival water filter do? Having water pass through a filter will make the water safe to drink. High-quality water filters from a shop will guarantee that no damaging pathogens or bacteria are entering into your drinking water. However, sometimes using store-bought, high-quality water filters might not be a choice. Few people carry one of these around with them all of the time. Besides, the problem with store-bought water filters is they really need to be cleaned up, or the filter needs to be changed relatively typically. And you should remember to carry it when you're out checking out. Filtering water with what you have. The standard process of filtering water in a survival circumstance is to get rid of debris like ground, dirt, sediment, sticks, leaves, and any animals living in the water. In order to develop a survival water filter, you will really need to collect various materials, such as pebbles, sand, fabric, and charcoal. If you realize you are in a survival situation, take a bit of time to think about what needs to be done. Sort out what you have with you and how it can be used to your benefit. Many people who are lost are found within 24 hours, so don't go crazy. Bear in mind that it isn't possible to filter salt water into drinkable fresh water, despite of the kinds of water filters you have. Making a standard survival water filter from scratch. The first thing to consider when gathering water is to think of how soon you'll need to drink. If you have time, collect standing water in a container and let it sit for some hours. This will allow anything that drifts to rise to the surface area and you can skim off any rubble. If you have 2 containers, then you should try this method for filtering water. Take the first container and fill it with water. Then put your t-shirt or some sort of permeable layer over the other container. Then put your pebbles on top of the cloth and filter your water by pouring it over the stones and into the container. After that, eliminate the pebbles and put sand, a finer material, on top of the fabric. Filter your water one more time. Finally, the most effective way to filter is to squash up charcoal. Put it on your fabric and let the water run through it. Charcoal filters remove sediment, many impurities, and improve taste. Charcoal is used in store-bought home and backcountry water filters. You could make your very own charcoal by making a campfire, covering it with dirt and ash, and allow it to cool totally. Once it has cooled, crush it into little pieces, then pour the water through the charcoal a few times. It's possible you should build a gizmo that will combine all 3 filtering steps, letting the water flow from one material to another. This will make the water slowly clearer as you filter it several times. If you don't have a man-made container, some natural materials are great alternatives. Bamboo is a prime example. It is hollow in the center and water can flow through it quickly. There are a lot of other plants with hollow centers. Make sure to use these to your advantage. A hollow log can be a great alternative. Place the materials, pebbles, sand, fabric, and charcoal, in layers through the different parts of the bamboo or log. Remember to think of what materials you are carrying and have a look at your environments in any survival circumstance. This should offer you with a fundamental insight on how to develop a survival water filter. Understand that it is still possible to get ill even if you follow the standards in this post. Always get in touch with a physician after you drink questionable water. The side effects of pathogens and microbes will take at the very least a week to start impacting you. When you're in a survival circumstance, keep hydrated and worry about those side effects sometime later. Chapter 3. More about clean water. Recently, the question was asked, what piece of prepping gear is at the top of your pail list? What should be obvious is that I was more than a little bit surprised to find that the best response was water storage, water filters, and water filtration equipment. Even though having the gear is nice, anyone fascinated by readiness also needs to have a basic comprehension of the principles behind water and water storage, and where to find, store, purify, and filter water are all questions that really need to be asked, answered, and regularly evaluated. So, how do I know that? A couple months ago, I was personally without running water for 12 days. Depending on speed on the do's and do nots of water were key to my getting by just fine throughout this period. With that in mind, today I share a chapter on the water as a survival fundamental. Back to the fundamentals. Surviving with water. When I initially began backdoor survival, my focus was on gathering the basics: food, water, shelter, and fire. Naturally, along the way, I have discovered that there is so much more that's essential to long-lasting survival. Things that come to mind are clean air, clothing, first aid, self-defense, signaling, and a community with others. However, today I want to keep things basic, and for the benefit of my more recent readers, return to the fundamentals and examine the essentials of water for survival. Water is the most crucial survival basic. Clean water is something that we all take for granted. we turn on the faucet and there it is. It is plentiful, it is clean, and it is drinkable. Yes, it might have some unwanted chemical additions, such as fluorides, but for the most part, having pure, potable water is something we have come to depend on. What it comes down to is that if a disaster happened and the supply lines to pure water were compromised, we would be in big trouble. There is a possibility that safe water wouldn't be available for days and possibly not for weeks. The guideline propagated by FEMA and practically every other authority out there is that you store at the very least 1 gallon of water per person and family pet each day for a minimum of 3 days. But if you believe that a 3-day water system is sufficient, reconsider. A more sensible recommendation is that you up the suggested amount of saved water to a 2-week supply. So for 2 people, that would be 2 people times 1 gallon times 14 days. That equals 28 gallons. That amount ought to cover your minimal needs for drinking, cooking, and nominal, and I mean nominal, health. Do-it-yourself water storage. Keeping water for an emergency can be as easy as filling thoroughly washed plastic or glass containers with tap water and sealing them securely. That is a thing which anybody can do without incurring a cost so long as a few basic guidelines are followed. Here are steps required to store water for emergency use. 1. Completely clean your plastic bottle and containers with dishwashing soap and water. Then rinse entirely so there is no residual soap. 2. Sanitize your bottles by including a solution of 1 teaspoon of unscented liquid household chlorine bleach to a quart of water. Swish the sanitizing solution in the containers so that it touches all interior surface areas. Don't forget to sanitize the covers and caps as well. After sanitizing the containers and caps, completely wash out the bleach resolution with clean water. Keep in mind, bleach has an efficient shelf life of 1 year. Make certain that the bleach you are using is fresh. 3. Fill the sterilized containers to the leading with regular tap water. Add 2 drops of non-scented liquid household chlorine bleach to the water, then tightly close the containers using the original caps. It is probably a very good idea to use some latex or nitrile gloves. A water freak. How to store water for emergency situation short-term use at this moment so that you can maintain the sanitation and do not contaminate the caps by touching the insides of them with your fingers. 4. Date the outside with a long-term marker, like a Sharpie. 5. Store it in a cool, dark spot. 6. As a precaution, rotate it 6 months to a year. Discard the water, re-sanitize the jugs, and begin all over. Or what you could do too, if you happen to have the room available, you could mark the jugs as non-potable and save the water for non-drinking emergency purposes. Personally, I think it would be a really good idea to set up several containers at the first of each month. Do this for 6 months, and you're going to build up a good rotating stock. Plastic soda bottles or juice containers work well for do-it-yourself water storage. On the other hand, milk jugs should not be used for water storage. Milk and protein sugars are difficult to eliminate and will compromise the kept water just because they produce an environment for germ growth. Additionally, milk containers are lightweight and will not hold up, even for a brief period of time. The same with the cardboard. The cardboard will eventually leak and make a huge mess. Glass is fine, but understand that glass is heavy and is subject to damage. Water stored as described above will benefit at least 6 months to a year and potentially longer. Let me be clear, you turn water not because it has an expiration date, but that it might become chemically or biologically polluted and foul. Why take a chance with it? Theoretically, if the water is kept in a cool, dark area and from chemical and harmful fumes, it needs to last forever and ever. If the tidiness of the water is in question, it can be cleansed with purification tablets, fresh bleach, or a filtering system such as the Berkey or Life Straw, among others. If you have space and the budget, you can also purchase food-grade plastic containers and drums developed for water storage. Those containers generally hold up to 55 gallons of water, and with the addition of correct filtration chemicals, will keep the water safe for up to 5 years. I personally have a 55-gallon water storage system. It was simple to set up, and it came equipped as a total package with all of the various tools and siphons I am going to need if and when that emergency situation occurs. Another alternative, obviously, is bottled water. The same rule applies. Store in a cool, dark area and regularly rotate just to be on the safe side. Secret sources of water. Aside from faucet water, there are other hidden sources of water that you can use when a catastrophe takes place. Those sources include the water in your warm water heater, pipes, and even ice cubes from the ice maker in your refrigerator or freezer. Before taking advantage of these sources, however, you will initially really need to shut down the primary valve entering your home so that you do not contaminate the good water with the bad. Here are some specific instructions for using the water in your hot water tank. Shut off the electricity or gas. Open the drain at the bottom of the tank. Start the water flowing by shutting off the water compensation valve at the tank and turning on a hot water faucet. And do not forget, be sure to refill the tank before turning the gas or electrical energy back on. Outside sources of water. Barring the usage of kept water or the hidden water sources in your home, there is always the outdoors. Water may be available from rainwater, streams, ponds, lakes, and natural streams. Definitely keep away from the floodwater, as it is very likely to include sewage and other nasty stuff that you do not even want to think about. When you are using outside sources of water, you're going to need to undertake filtration measures to make it safe. There are a lot of ways to purify water, and some are better than others, while some are just simpler than others. Water filtration. For ad hoc water purification, nothing beats plain old bleach, as long as it is fresh, no greater than a year old, and unscented. According to the Clorox website, when boiling off water for 1 minute is not possible in an emergency situation, you can disinfect your drinking water with Clorox water as follows. 1. Eliminate suspended particles by filtering or letting particles settle to the bottom. 2. Put off clear water into a very clean container. 3. Add 8 drops of Clorox regular bleach, not scented or Clorox Plus bleaches, to 1 gallon of water, 2 drops to 1 quart. For cloudy water, use 16 drops per gallon of water, 4 drops to 1 quart. Boiling water is considered the most safe approach of purifying water. What you do is bring water to a rolling boil for 3 to 5 minutes. The water might not taste that great, but it will be safe to drink. Factoid: to enhance the taste of boiled or kept water, you can put some oxygen back into the water by pouring it backward and forward between 2 containers. As an option to bleach or boiling water, the EPA has standards for using calcium hypochlorite, frequently sold as pool shock, to decontaminate water. Add and liquefy 1 loading teaspoon of high-test granular calcium hypochlorite, around 1/4 ounce, for each 2 gallons of water, or 5 milliliters, roughly 7 grams, per 7.5 liters of water. The mixture will produce a stock chlorine resolution of roughly 500 milligrams per liter. since the calcium hypochlorite has available chlorine that's basically equal to about 70% of its weight. To sanitize water, add the chlorine solution in the ratio of 1 part of chlorine solution to each 100 parts of water to be dealt with. This is about equal to adding 1 pint or 16 ounces of stock chlorine to each 12.5 gallons of water, or approximately half a liter to 50 liters of water, to be decontaminated. To eliminate any unpleasant chlorine smell, aerate the disinfected water by putting it backward and forward from one clean container to another. Chapter 4. More about water filters. The use of water filters to make raw water drinkable is another resolution to the water for survival dilemma. The nice thing about a filtration system is that it will not only supplement your stored water, but it will provide you with great tasting, chemical-free drinking water for day to day. I personally have a Royal Berkey, and actually, I really wonder what took me so long to discover this option to purchase water in bottles and a countertop Brita. This is not to say that I don't have mineral water simply because I do. After all, I have to leave my home. It would be tough to drag along a 55-gallon water barrel or a Berkey. However, for day-to-day drinking and long-term survival needs, you simply can't beat a quality filtering system. Portable water filters. I've had best of luck with the Life Straw personal water filter. This lightweight and budget-friendly filter is like an extra large straw. You can use it with a cup or dip it straight into a pond or stream. There are other portable water filtering systems as well, and these are handy to keep in your emergency situation backpack, your automobile, or your travel set. If you choose to check into this, be sure to validate that the original contents were foodstuff. You should clean them well first with vinegar and baking soda to remove odors, and then with a strong bleach for sanitation. Here in my area, there's a guy who sells such barrels and will even add a hose bib at the bottom for a small cost. I am not 100% sure I would drink from such a barrel, but the water inside should be great for bathing, laundry, and housekeeping tasks. Another reader has suggested the application of colloidal silver to get rid of bacteria in the water. I have not investigated this personally, though. Whatever your water storage approach of choice, I highly recommend that you store it at the very least 2 weeks of water for each member of your household, which includes pets. Please remember that depending on climate conditions, you can only endure for an average of 3 to 5 days without the consumption of water. Why gamble when it is so easy to store water? Should you store commercial mineral water? There are benefits and drawbacks to using bottled water for your survival water. The apparent advantage of buying bulk containers of water that are normally packaged to be nicely stacked is hard to overlook. Plus, you are buying a relatively pure item that has been bottled under sanitary conditions. All important aspects to consider when assembling your survival water supply. However, there are issues with mineral water that could leave you choosing against saving it, or to just save a minimal amount to see you over a bulge. Mineral water isn't environmentally friendly. The bottles are a huge use of plastic and will pile up fast if you rely on a bottled water supply at the time of an emergency. Not only can disposal cause a problem, if you happen to be a prepper concerned about the environment, then you know water bottles are dreadful, no matter how you slice it. Bottled water is not always ethically sourced. Some international corporations seem content to drain aquifers or pump countless gallons of water from rural areas and deliver it in costly bottles to please the stylish thirst of folks in the big cities. The end outcome is huge profit for some and lost resources for others. Business mineral water isn't made for long-term use. When saved in severe conditions, plastic can break down and leach chemicals. Unsurprisingly, Severe conditions are usually when preppers really need their water the most. Do you truly want plastic-flavored water? I do not. As plastic degrades, bottles can start leaking. The exemption to this is the large bottles produced for office water dispensers. These are made to be refilled and don't break down like single-serve water bottles, and the gallons of water you can find at any supermarket during good times. It is expensive. Gallon for gallon, bottled water is a drain on your wallet. Now, it's just one thing to put a dozen or so gallons aside. It's another to make your whole water storage strategy revolve around pricey bottled water. Consider the monetary cost of more than a couple days' worth of drinking water in business bottles. Obviously, there are apparent advantages, like not needing to think about doing any of the bottling yourself, being able to toss a couple bottles in an emergency situation package, or a couple of cases in your car, or stacking boxes of gallon containers in your closet. The creative prepper will stabilize the ecological, social, and monetary costs of business mineral water against its utility. You are the only person who knows exactly what level of energy bottled water offers you and how to balance that in your preparations. Some folks could rely more heavily on mineral water than others, but that needs to be your choice. At least a well-balanced supply in business bottles, 55-gallon drums, and home-filled containers will give you more options than just counting on a single source of kept water. Bottled water has a purpose, but it probably shouldn't be your primary source of water. It can be costly and harmful to the environment, maybe in a quickly degradable product packaging, and is generally the least efficient storage method of keeping that water. Even so, it offers great convenience, is easily portable, and the containers can be recycled several times over. By stabilizing the good and the bad of mineral water, you can be more safe and secure in your preparations. Chapter 5. Staying Cool Without Airco. Year after year, summer season storms trigger power failures throughout the United States. For the ones who are unprepared, these power blackouts, combined with the summer heat waves, can be a deadly combination. That is why understanding how to cool yourself and your home without AC is a crucial piece of knowledge you should possess. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, approximately 675 people die from heat-related health problems each year in the USA, making it one of the leading causes of weather-related deaths in the country. Throughout an extreme heat wave that hit Chicago in 1995, over 700 deaths were directly credited to the heat. In 2006, in California, a lethal heat wave snuffed out 655 people during a 14-day time period. What makes heat so deadly? Living in the desert, I can tell you that going without air conditioning can be rather a miserable experience. But during an extended power failure, heat can be more than just awkward. It can be downright harmful. Continued direct exposure to excessive heat can result in hyperthermia and heat exhaustion. If left unattended, heat exhaustion can rapidly progress to heat stroke and death. So early treatment and preemptive cooling procedures are very crucial. Throughout a grid-down catastrophe or power blackout, the ability to cool down is going to be vital to your survival, especially if you live in a region that's susceptible to extremely warm weather. How to stay cool when the power heads out and you have no air conditioning. Up to about 60 years ago, in-home air conditioning was practically unusual. But despite an absence of central air conditioning, there wasn't an epidemic of people dropping dead in their homes simply because of the heat. So what changed? Well, just like most of the modern technologies, there was a drawback. People forgot how to look after themselves when technology inevitably failed. The lessons from the past were mostly forgotten, and here we see ourselves in a society that is progressively depending on technology, government, and everybody but ourselves to solve our issues. So, how did prior generations keep themselves cool? They stayed in caves. Even in some of the most popular parts in the world, old populations thrived in areas that most would consider unwelcoming to life. In a lot of these areas, they did this by constructing their homes inside caverns or partially into the ground. While I am not going to suggest you run out and find the nearest cavern, our contemporary equivalent is the Midwest basement. If you live in a home with a basement, your best choice for staying cool throughout a power failure is to establish a sanctuary in your own contemporary cave. Since heat increases and cool air naturally collects downstairs, your basement can be so great during a heat-related emergency. They hung wet sheets. For thousands of years, the Egyptians would hang damp sheets and linens in entrances and windows. Those moist sheets would help cool their homes through evaporation and turn an arid desert breeze into an early mist device. Down south, many hang these wet sheets in entrances, but they also sleep with them. Before you go to bed, you should try dipping your sheets in water and then wringing them out so they're not leaking wet. Through the night, the wet sheets will continue to evaporate, cooling the air around you. They went swimming. The Great Bath, built over 5,000 years ago in Sindh, Pakistan, is just one of the earliest public pools in the Old World. Throughout history, many people have used these public water tanks for bathing, and more importantly, for being and staying cool. In the 1930s, the building and construction of public pools skyrocketed in America. And between 1933 and 1938, almost 750 municipal pools were built throughout the country. Even if you don't have a swimming pool, sitting in a small plastic children's paddling pool or soaking in a bathtub filled with cool water can help bring down your body temperature. For about $10, you can buy one of these swimming pools and stash it away for a hot summer day. Some other good ideas for staying cool without air conditioning. Have a misting water bottle for everyone in your house. Something as easy as having a couple spray bottles filled with water can help to keep you cool during the summertime. Simply misting yourself on a regular basis, particularly if you can stand in front of a fan or out in a shady breeze, can work wonders for cooling down your body. It can also be a lifesaver at the time of a scenario where you could be getting close to heat exhaustion. Invest in some cooling towels. When I was younger, my AC headed out on a cross-nation trip right as I hit the scorching 110-degree heat of the desert Southwest. To stay cool, I stopped at each rest stop along the highway and wet down my t-shirt and a couple of bandanas, and then I twisted around my head and neck. Doing that helped me make it through 10 miserable hours of fatal heat with no ill results. Today, makers use special fabrics and materials to make long-lasting cooling towels that can provide a lot of relief for the heat. Quick tips. Just get some battery-operated fans. Build your own off-grid AC unit. During the day, keep your shades drawn and your windows closed. Or, if it's windy, hang lightweight linens that block solar rays but still allow a light breeze to enter your home. Make sure to wet them first. At night, open all your windows and let the cool night air in. Wear some loose-fitting, lightweight, light-colored clothes. Stay hydrated at all times. A heat wave is approximately as predictable in the summer season as the presence of watermelon at farmers markets. If you live in a region that doesn't generally experience high temperatures, you may find yourself and your family in danger of heat stroke. As a long-lasting desert rat, Here are some pointers to help you stay cool or as cool as possible when summer heat skyrockets. Make ample use of every kind of fan you own. Ceiling fans are a must. Just be sure the fan blades are turning counterclockwise, which blows the air downward. Turn off your fans when you leave home. Distributing air is there to help keep your body cool. When nobody is in the room, electricity is being lost. If your house or apartment or condo does not have AC, keep spray bottles filled with water handy. It's amazing how a spritz of water on your face will help you feel cooler. This is an old technique I learned when I survived on kibbutz. Prior to bedtime, spritz your bed sheets with plenty of water. Intend an electrical fan toward your side of the bed. Dive in and go to sleep rapidly. If you do not yet own several battery-powered fans, hurry over to Amazon and pick up at least one or two. I purchased one small fan for each member of my family. My thinking is that we should each be able to have your own fan and not have to share its cooling breeze with anybody. You can use other individuals' cooling. Several summers ago, when our home was being refurbished, the children and I spent lots of hours at the library. At times, we'd go to the mall, but that was too dangerous to our budget plan. If you have a family and friends who enjoy your company, pay them a go-to. Take in a tub filled with cool water. That will cool off your core better than a shower will. Wear your bathing suit around the house. If you'll be outside, wet down a bandana. Put several ice cubes down the center, diagonally, roll it up, and tie it around your neck. If the early mornings are cool, open all your windows. Let that cool air flow through your home and then close them up as quickly as the heat embeds in. At this time, close your drapes, shades, or shutters. I love a bright sunlit home, but in the summer, this works for me. Check the western direct exposure of your home. If you have windows that face west, look into low-cost blinds. Even aluminum foil taped over your windows temporarily can help keep your home cooler. Look at those who do landscaping. You'll find they always wear wide-brimmed hats, long-sleeved shirts, and long pants. They know what they're doing. It sounds counterintuitive, but that additional fabric will protect your skin from the sun. If you really need to do outside chores, do them in the early morning when the sun rises. Young kids and the elderly are more susceptible to heat stroke. Pay cautious attention to their needs. Look at elderly good friends and loved ones. In the Great Chicago Heat Wave of 1995, numerous people died in less than a week. A lot of them were senior. If you must, splash your naked body with water and stand in front of a fan. Finally, think like a survival mom. What can you do to get ready for the next heat wave? Chapter 6. Winter Season Survival. Without the benefit of main heating, a warm vehicle, or access to a heated public structure, wilderness survival in winter months can be difficult. The following list consists of vital knowledge for staying warm in winter when you are out in the wilderness, plus some winter risks to look out for. The dangers of getting cold in the wilderness. Whether you're backpacking, camping, living off the grid, or in a survival situation, you really need to consider your options for staying warm in all sorts of weather. That's tougher than it sounds when you are far from civilization. Everything you need must fit in your pack or have space for in your shelter. That means you probably won't have room for an elegant generator, additional fuel, or a hot tub. Okay, so I'm kidding about the jacuzzi, but staying warm in winter season actually is no joke. The risks of getting cold in the winter wilderness go farther than a mild case of the chills or a runny nose. Sluggishness. As your body cools, you'll start to feel drowsy. and sapped of energy. That will keep you from moving quickly enough to stay alive in an emergency. Sluggishness will also stop you from having the necessary energy to complete physically demanding survival jobs, like building a shelter or digging for food. Brain fog. Brain fog occurs when your blood cools and slows, bringing less oxygen to your brain. This will slow your thinking and may even cause confusion, which contributes to poor decision making. Shivers. Unmanageable shaking is just one of the first signs that the cold is getting to you. It makes it tough to light fires, tie appropriate knots, and look after other necessary survival needs. Shivers also have a mental effect, even on the toughest survivors. Frostnip and frostbite. When the water particles in your body start to freeze, you're taking a look at frostbite, which can irreversibly damage skin, muscles, and your nervous system. Frostnip is the stage before frostbite, an early warning, so try to catch it before it intensifies. Better yet, take procedures to keep from frostnip in the first place. Hypothermia. This is the huge bad boogeyman of winter season wilderness survival. When your body's core temperature level dips below 95 degrees Fahrenheit, hypothermia sets in. Around 600 people die every year from hypothermia, tons of which could have endured if they'd had the right knowledge. Frostnip and frostbite. When tissues cool and capillary restricts, you get frostnip. It is not irreversible, but if left untreated, you will rapidly slip into frostbite territory. There is no returning from that, and once your tissues are damaged by frostbite, those cells are dead. Here are some signs of frostnip and frostbite. A cold or numb feeling in the affected area. Pale or red skin. Pins and needles feeling in the area. Itchy, tingly, or clammy skin. Loss of sensation to cold. Loss of elasticity and pliability in your skin. Increasing pain. Frostnip signs include a cold or numb feeling in the affected area, pale or red skin, and sometimes the pins and needles tingling of restricted blood flow. In one word, frostnip is annoying. Your skin will feel itchy, tingly, and possibly clammy. It's important to note that frostnip leaves your skin's pliability and softness intact, so these aren't good signs of potential damage. If you can't get the affected skin to warm up again, you'll really need to watch out for frostbite. Signs of frostbite include skin turning whiter or paler, loss of sensation of cold, skin losing flexibility and pliability, and increasing pain. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot you can do for full-blown frostbite other than warm yourself up in order to prevent more damage. So avoidance is your best course of action. Hypothermia. Hypothermia is much more uneasy than frostbite, since this condition can rapidly lead to death. If you happen to be in the wilderness alone, getting hypothermia is generally a death sentence, unless you move quickly to treat it. Here are some signs of hypothermia you need to be knowledgeable about. Shivering, slurred speech, weak pulse, shallow breathing or trouble breathing, poor coordination, amnesia and confusion, loss of awareness. Because of the confusion, amnesia, and potential for loss of awareness associated with hypothermia, it is extremely challenging to self-diagnose this condition. If you think you could have hypothermia, you must take immediate steps to heat up and get yourself protected from the elements. By now, you know that many problems of cold weather wilderness survival can be dangerous. Obviously, concentrating on avoidance and mitigation of damages is your best option for survival. What do you do if you get stuck in the wilderness longer than you expected or you were caught absolutely off guard? For those times, you find yourself in a less than ideal situation. All is not lost. Your knowledge might be all of the prepping you really need. Right below are some of the tried and true tips for staying warm in severe winter weather. Basic guidelines of winter survival. Cover your mouth. This has absolutely nothing to do with manners and every little thing to do with stopping freezing air from entering your lungs. If you struggle with asthma, have a cold, or are vulnerable to breathing issues, this idea is particularly essential. Stay dry. Wet outfits in winter season are an invite for hypothermia and frostbite. I know it's tough to stay completely dry in the rain and snow, but that is why you should have those 2 additional sets of outfits in your bag. Dry your adventuring clothes overnight and wear your warm, dry stuff while you sleep. Keep from overexerting yourself. Naturally, building your shelter and finding food is essential, but not at the cost of overexertion. If you overexert yourself, you'll be drenched in sweat. Generally, the sweating will trigger you to become hypodermic much more rapidly. Do not sit still for too long. There is a fine line between overexertion and being too still. Inactivity will slow your heart and cool your limbs, so try to keep moving a sensible amount. Passive exercise works well in tight quarters. Dress in loose layers. Layers trap air between them, which makes you warmer than just wearing one thick layer. Moreover, it saves room in your bug-out bag for more crucial products like food and water. Wear 3 to 5 layers, ensuring the leading layer is wind and water resistant. Stay near your shelter. You'll really need to find food and water, but don't stray too far from your shelter. An unforeseen change in the weather could leave you stranded too far from base camp and end in your demise. You should never ever leave an appropriate shelter in search of help in a winter season wilderness you aren't familiar with. Never ever sleep on the ground. The ground is cold and also usually wet in the early mornings specifically. If you can, build some kind of platform to get yourself off of the ground. Even a layer of plastic bags or a basic tarp would be better than sleeping directly on the ground, so get creative if you must. Shelter is your new god. This means that you better be prepared to work. Whether you produce an action plan and collect your shelter supplies before the big event, or you wind up winging it, shelter must be your leading concern for winter season survival. Shelter provides defense from the elements: rain, snow, dropping temperatures, and biting winds, and a place to store your equipment and supplies. Your job is to hunch down and stay alive, and you can't do that without shelter. The cold weather are unforgiving, so build a shelter that can withstand Mother Nature's worst. 5 types of winter season wilderness shelters. In a wilderness setting, you can make a fast, strong shelter using what nature itself has provided. Try to find big trees, rocks, fallen branches, saplings, and natural land formations that you can use to your advantage. Tree and bush shelters. Using trees and shrubs as shelter shouldn't be your whole winter survival plan. It's just not sustainable, comfortable, or appropriate for long-term survival. Besides, you can't begin a fire under them. and you'll really need to have a fire at some point if you want to make it. Nevertheless, in a pinch, when there isn't time to construct a correct shelter, this just may keep you alive. Spruce trees are appropriate for human shelter since they offer a sturdy, nearly impenetrable canopy. They usually have a thick bed of needles underneath them to lay the groundwork for a comfy bed. In addition, the trunks of many types of mature trees can be big enough to provide a natural windbreak. If there are no spruce trees in your area, you can use any tree that has a very good canopy and a thick trunk. Avoid trees that are leaning heavily to one side or that have roots coming up out of the ground. Heavy snow could topple this behemoth at any moment. If the branches are too low for you to run under, cut or break a few off to make an appropriate area for you to climb inside. In a pinch, you can slide under heavy brush or deep inside evergreen plants. Look out for animals hiding in these locations, however. Some won't be as ready to forfeit their home when you come intruding. To take full advantage of the heat inside this kind of shelter, try to make it on the tinier side and accumulate remains on all sides of the shelter. The remains can act as insulation and keep your temperature from leaving to get you through the night alive. Hollowed logs. Hollowed logs work a lot like the tree and bush emergency situation shelters. You may dig into them a little bit to make enough room, but they are already raised off of the ground and supply their own cover, so it is a compromise. Find a down tree with a trunk that's beginning to rot from the inside out. This indicates that the center of the log will be breakable or perhaps already partially hollow, while the outside will be intact. Use a tool such as a strong shovel, trowel, or hand axe to carve away at the center of the log and hollow out an area huge enough for you to climb inside. Expect big bugs while doing this. Once the interior of the tree is reasonably clean, climb up inside. For added heat, consider stacking rubble around the open end of the log to keep cold air out and body heat in. Make certain that you still have a way for fresh air to get in at night. Hollowed logs can be great in an emergency situation if you come across just the right tree or log that is in the correct stage of decay. Don't squander your time attempting to hollow out a downed tree that isn't already rather rotten. It will take far too much work. Like the other tree and shrub-based shelters, you don't want to count on a hollow log for too long. It's great in a pinch and will get you out of the elements, but it's not practical for a long-term stay. Tip: a reward for finding a huge log like this is that any pieces you dig and scoop out will make awesome kindling for beginning a fire. Moreover, grubs love to live in decomposing trees and make a crispy reward when cooked over a fire. Tarp shelters. Tarp shelters are simple to construct, assuming you have some fundamental survival gear in your bug-out bag. A tarp and a little bit of army-grade paracord are all you really need to stay warm and dry. A roll of duct tape would not hurt either for closing up the ends of the shelter, and also many other survival purposes. For the following draping methods, keep one end open and higher than the other. This gives you room to crawl in and lets rain and snow slide off the other side. The duct tape will keep the flaps in the back closed. If you do not have duct tape, use heavy rocks put around the tarp tent to keep it from flapping in the wind. Curtain your tarpaulin over a very big log, low branch, or fallen tree. This is good enough for a fast, short-term shelter for 1 to 2 days. Heavy rocks on the outside edges will keep the wind out. Then drape the tarp over a branch or tall plant about chest height or above for a larger shelter. That is suitable for 1 to 7 days, generally. It's a pretty good choice for a searching or trapping camp if you have already spotted animal activity close by. String rope or paracord up tight in the trees, then curtain the tarpaulin over the paracord for a taller shelter. The cable and tarp shelter offers more room for a survival fire and a bit more leg room without sacrificing heat retention. This is a great alternative for a longer stay. It offers an appropriate base for adding layers to the outside walls for more insulation. As long as your cord holds and your frame is durable, you can add more wind and rain security on the top as well. Branches, plastic sheeting, animal skins, and newspapers work well with this kind of shelter. Snow trench. A snow trench can save your life if conditions are so bad that you cannot get under the trees, or construct a tarp tent before dark. A lot of people are hesitant to think of snow as an option for constructing a warm shelter. After all, snow is cold, right? Well, it is, but it is also a great construction material and highly insulating as well. Here's how you build a snow trench shelter. Dig a narrow trench in the snow to mid-thigh and slightly larger than your shoulders. Put branches, boards, poles, or sticks across the trench to create a stable roofing system frame. Just use blankets, tarps, camp towels, plywood, or more branches to completely cover the top of the trench. The last roofing layer should be snow, which is an excellent insulator. Pad the inside of your trench with leaves, evergreen boughs, blankets, papers, or plastic bags. Then slide in. Your body will heat the trench enough to keep you alive until daybreak. Lean-to. A lean-to is a really basic survival shelter that includes a horizontal primary support beam across the top and sticks or branches leaning up against this support on one or both sides. Here's how to build a standard lean-to. Find a tough, straight branch and place it between two trees. You can support it by placing each end of this branch in a V of two branches in the support trees on either end, or by lashing it to the trees using cordage. For a smaller shelter, try making a lean-to with one end in a tree and the other down on the ground. This will make a smaller sized shelter, which will help to keep in body heat. You should use littler branches and lean them up along each side of the shelter. This is precisely why this shelter is called a lean-to. That will finish the structure. For insulation and to make the shelter more resistant to rain, pile up rubble against this framework in cascading layers from the ground up. The thicker the rubble stack is on each side, the more insulation you'll have and the warmer it will be at night. Lean-tos are simple to make using a variety of supplies. Ski poles, branches, wood slabs, anything you can find that will make a sturdy frame and a tough roof is enough. They're exceptional for long-term survival in the winter season. It's as easy as leaning poles, branches, or other stiff materials against another sturdy object to make a space below that is huge enough for you to lay or sit in. Use of fire. Shelter, food, water, and fire. These are the four things that will keep you alive. Fire can be exceptionally hard to produce and maintain in winter conditions, so it is always best to prepare beforehand. Keep a fire starting set in your BOB, your car, and at your work environment so you're never caught off guard. If you find yourself in the dead of winter without any lighter, you can try some of these smart techniques to get a fire going without a lighter. You'll want to start collecting firewood right away. Pick up whatever you see and hang it from your pack to dry as you walk. If it's drizzling or snowing, stick it inside your pack. It will not dry extremely fast in there, but at least it's not getting wetter either. Things that are on top of the snow will be much easier to light than the items under the snow that have been soaking up water for days. You'll need a significant amount of kindling for winter season fires. Smaller is better, so shave it down or snap wood into pieces and gather the splinters and smidgens into a pile. It's tempting to produce a roaring fire on these cold winter nights, but that is a great way to get yourself dead. Everything is harder to find in the winter season, so preservation of firewood should be a concern. Keep the fire little and protected. Feed it only enough to keep it burning and your water boiling, and be prepared to hunt in the coals the next early morning for anything that is dry and still burnable. Staying warm overnight. During the day, you can move around and produce body heat to keep you warm, but in the evening, your breathing slows and your body starts to cool down. You're going to need warm layers, a dry shelter, and good insulation to make it through the night. Make sure you use these techniques to add a little bit more warmth to your nights. Tea candles are small but remarkably good heaters on freezing nights. They're easy to keep in your BOB and weigh practically absolutely nothing. In a well-built shelter, you can use one small tea candle to stay warm. Make sure to place the candle in a place that will not catch you or your shelter on fire while you sleep. I like putting them in a tall mason jar and tucking them near the sealed back of the shelter where my head will be while I'm sleeping. Survival blankets trap heat and keep you warm in the coldest weather. They are light enough to load around, but tough enough for some harder applications, like use of a short-term roofing for a snow trench. Newspapers, plastic sheets, plastic bags, leaves, and evergreen boughs can keep you warm if you do not have a blanket. They also make great sleeping mats. Hand warmers are light, cheap, and simple to use. Hot stones from your fire can lengthen the heat production in your shelter without risking catching every little thing on fire. Put them around you at bedtime or in a pile nearby to extend your heating time. Use passive exercise to keep your blood flowing. Tense and relax your muscles for some minutes to raise your body temperature level and help warm up your sleeping area. That works great in sleeping bags, but if you only have leaves, branches, and a snow trench, passive exercise will still help. Ensure your socks are dry before going to bed. It does not take long for wet socks to freeze, even inside a sleeping bag or under some makeshift bedding. Essential winter season survival gear to have. There are many posts online covering survival gear in general, but not as many good ones for winter-specific conditions. So, here's my personal list of winter season survival gear. Just add these products to your bug-out bag, BOB, and you are good to go for even the harshest winter season survival circumstances. A hatchet for reducing little trees or digging out logs. It works great for shaving wood for kindling also. A small shovel. You're going to need this for emergency shelters, like the snow trench, and for digging under the snow when foraging for food. 2 additional layers of clothes. I bring long johns and workout clothes. Be sure to use whatever will fit under your regular outfits and will fit in your BOB. Choose loose-fitting items that dry quickly. Ski mask, balaclava, face shields, or perhaps a basic bandana. Have 2 pairs of crucial clothes so one can dry while you wear the other. Hand warmers. Bonus socks. Bring 2 more pairs than you think you will really need. Fire equipment, including but not limited to matches, lighter, flint and steel, and a small amount of dry kindling. a canteen to keep close to your body under your clothes to ensure you always have water. This has been Survival Guide: Prepping to Stay Cool, Stay Warm, and Find Water by Jordan Gunner. Narrated by J.A. Leidig. Survival Guide: Emergency Preparedness, Self-Defense, and Survivalism by Jordan Gunner. Narrated by J.A. Leidig. Chapter 1: How to Survive in the Jungle. Because jungles are so wet, gathering rainwater is probably the easiest part of survival. Leaves on the rainforest floor are large because of the restricted amount of sunshine they get. The bigger the leaf, the more of the sun's rays it can soak up. Big leaves are valuable in gathering dew and rainwater. If you have a container to store water, just angle a leaf into it overnight or throughout a rainstorm, and you have some fresh drinking water in no time. If you have a poncho, tie it to a tree on a slant to allow the rain to collect and drain. If it tastes a little amusing, it's simply because rainwater does not have certain minerals found in groundwater or streams. You will do a lot better if you can find a running water source. Animals need water, so search for wildlife or animal tracks to lead you to a stream. If you find a stream, do not just start drinking. It could include parasites that can make you seriously ill. You should purify the water by boiling it over a fire. 10 minutes is a great guideline. Boiling water means you need fire and a container of some kind. If you don't have a container, you can most likely find an aluminum or tin can in most any natural surroundings. You can believe it or not, but plastic bottles can work for boiling. One technique is to entirely fill the bottle with water, cap it, and drop it into some hot coals. The lack of air in the bottle should keep it from melting. If you don't have enough water to fill the bottle, suspend it over the fire with rope or vine so the flames just touch the bottom. The risk of boiling in a plastic bottle is that your collection gadget could melt. Green bamboo has clear and odorless water inside it that you can drink. To access it, flex the top of a tree down about a foot off the ground and tie it off. Cut several inches off the suggestion, put a container below, and leave it overnight. The next day, you should have some drinkable water. Another way to gather water is to make a solar still. If this needs to get done, you'll really need some plastic sheeting or a poncho, a digging tool, a container, and a rock. Choose a moist area that gets sunshine for most of the day. Dig a bowl-shaped hole about 3 feet across, 91 centimeters, and 2 feet deep, 60 centimeters, with an additional sump or deeper pit in the center. Place the container into the sump. Put the plastic over the hole and cover the sides with rock and dirt to keep it secure. Put your rock in the center of the sheet and let it hang down about 18 inches or 45 centimeters, straight over the container to form an inverted cone. The wetness from the ground reacts with the heat from the sun to produce condensation on the plastic. The sag in the plastic forces the condensation to run all the way down and into your container. An effective still can produce up to 1 quart of drinking water a day. These are just a few techniques you can use. Chapter 2: How to quickly prepare your home for a hurricane. Your television show cuts off to air a breaking news broadcast. The governor of your state has just released a state of emergency situation. That Category 4 hurricane you have been keeping track of has taken an unexpected turn toward land, and it will make landfall in less than a week. Your house is dead center of the predicted course, and you're not ready for this unforeseen home visitor. Today, I'm going to show you how to rapidly prepare your home for a cyclone so you can put your mind at ease fast while keeping your family and home safe and sound. The first top priority in any emergency circumstance is to ensure you don't worry and to keep working through any problems you might face. It's truly simple to immediately stress and make errors that could cost you big time in the long run. Take a deep breath. The circumstance I defined above is pretty extreme, but definitely something you can handle, specifically with the right tools and knowledge. 1. Emergency management pages and apps. If this is your first cyclone, go on and see if your county has an emergency situation management Facebook page. They probably will, and in case of a power blackout, you're going to have the ability to track where water and food are being given out. Innovation has made it much easier to stay notified, which will help keep you calmer. Your state needs to have an emergency preparedness plan site. Check out FEMA to find the appropriate websites for your state. Those sites have lots of resources you can turn to in case of any emergency situation and usually include useful lists of what to do in case of a natural catastrophe. 2. Generators. Probably if you have a typhoon about to make landfall in a few days, all the generators will be out of stock. This is exactly why prepping is so vital. It helps you to stay ahead of the pack and have everything you need without running into scarcities. If you do manage to snag one, that is great. It will be handy to help keep devices running until the power comes back on. In a pinch, it is possible to use a huge power inverter to power your appliances for a brief time. A power inverter is a device that will connect to your car's battery and offer a standard 110-volt output. You can purchase these online at many automobile parts stores, Walmart, and home enhancement stores. You can run an extension cable from this gadget to your fridge, for example, to keep it running and your food from spoiling. Ensure you choose an inverter that is large enough to run the device that you want to power it with. Check the ranking in watts of the inverter and compare it to the label on your appliance. You will also likely have to leave your vehicle going to power the gadget if you happen to be running a pretty big home appliance off of the inverter, such as a fridge. If not, it will drain your automobile's battery in a matter of minutes. 3. Non-perishable food and water. If you choose to ride out the storm, you'll really need to stock up on at least 3 days of food and water, although it is a good idea to have more. Bottled water, canned items, cereals, and foods that won't spoil without refrigeration or really need to be cooked should be in your pantry. Food. Meats and frozen veggies can be kept in a deep freezer for a few days if the power goes out, though you're going to really need a generator to keep the temperature level cold. Ice bags and frozen water bottles in coolers can help keep snacks and drinks cold for a while also. Generally, if most cold foods are kept over 40 degrees Fahrenheit for more than 2 hours, then they are supposed to be disposed of. Water. Water is another commodity that will be hard to find several days before the typhoon. Try and get several cases of water bottles and even some containers. If you live on a farm, use those water tanks in 5-gallon pails. Use what you have available and be sure to check out this post about safely saving water for emergencies. Another trick is to fill up a bathtub with water ahead of time. While soap residue and other impurities present in the tub makes it a bad source of drinking water, this water can be used for cleaning dishes, flushing a toilet, or personal health. 4. Electronics. Mobile phones, tablets, and even laptop computers should all be charged up and continued battery chargers right up until the power goes out. Trust me, once the power heads out, you're going to want your Kindle completely charged for entertainment. Just use portable chargers to keep your gadgets going for days. For cell phones and tablets, you can recharge them with an automobile battery charger. It is also a wise choice to buy several power sticks or other backup charging gadgets in advance and have them at full charge. If the cell towers go out, switch your devices over to airplane mode so they don't lose battery life by searching for signal. 5. Gas. Aside from water and non-perishables, the local gas supply is the first thing to go when a cyclone is coming. Vehicles will be lined up so far out into the street you'd think the new iPhone was here or that Starbucks is carrying out their pumpkin spice lattes. You will want to get your own tanks complemented ASAP and keep them topped off. It also wouldn't hurt to fill up any gas or diesel cans you have or buy a couple extras. Those will go fast too. However early you think you should accomplish this task, do it several days earlier than that. Believe me, gas and gas cans will be tough to come by really quickly. 6. Other essentials. There are other essentials you'll really need. Here's a fast list of them. Completely equipped first aid package. This includes prescription medications. Books and parlor games for home entertainment. Keep your Kindle equipped and charged. Personal health and sanitation items. Flashlights. Additional batteries. Battery or solar operated radio. Manual can opener. Water-resistant containers for picture albums and essential documents. A plan for evacuation. A designated meeting point if relatives get separated. Whether you decide to leave or ride out the storm, understanding how to prepare your home for an emergency situation is crucial. Hurricanes bring in strong winds that will break branches and even topple trees. Depending on the storm's strength, always expect some damage, but decrease the potential total damage by taking these standard steps. 7. Safe windows. In gale-forced winds, windows are always the first thing to get damaged, whether it's from a strong gust of wind itself or a branch crashing through the glass. Leaving your windows revealed is a threat to you and your family. You can either purchase hurricane shutters or plywood to cover your windows. Hurricane shutters are cheaper in the long run as they are either completely attached to the home or can be taken down and kept in other places. Truth be told, more recent homes in cyclone zones are typically needed to have cyclone shutters set up. Some houses also have typhoon glass, which is just like a vehicle windscreen. It consists of 2 layers of glass and a plastic layer between for added strength. If you do not have or cannot get hurricane shutters, plywood sheets work just as well. Measure out your windows and drill in the plywood over them. A few holes in the siding and frames are less upsetting than a window shattering and hurting loved ones. Plywood at your regional home enhancement store will be similar to gas at the gas station. It will sell out early and quickly. Some people will also tape their windows, thinking this will keep them from breaking. It will keep them from shattering, but the window can still break and break. 8. Secure doors. Just before you leave your home or hunch down, make certain all your inside doors are closed, locked, and protected. A strong enough wind can open an unsecured door, and if you need to evacuate, looters have a much better chance of breaking in. Make certain to secure and confirm your garage doors for this same reason. 9. Clean up the outside. Anything that can't be tied down or bolted down needs to come indoors. Toys, garbage cans, flower pots, chairs, and tables need to be stored in the home or garage. Playsets, if not bolted down, should be taken apart and saved the exact same way. Anything that can't be restrained is immediate cyclone remains and produces a threat for yourself and your next door neighbors. Clear out the rain gutters and trim bushes and hedges. Branches that look lightweight or noticeably splitting need to be brought down. You won't get everything, but you can still stop considerable damage with a little bit of effort ahead of time. This will be a question that you're going to have to contend with. You'll likely feel lured to try and ride out the cyclone. At a feline 1 or perhaps 2 level, it's possible. Oftentimes, though, there are just too many aspects to safely ride out a hurricane. If you do choose to ride out a storm, follow the guidelines above in protecting your home and preparing for landfall. If you live in a flood zone, go to higher ground. Flash floods are no joke, and you do not want to be stuck in your home. Even if you're not in a flood zone, there's a possibility of heavy storm surge flooding homes in the area. This is what occurred in Houston throughout Cyclone Harvey in 2017. For that possibility, keep an axe helpful in case your home begins flooding and you need to get out fast. There were lots of people who kept climbing up higher inside their houses as a result of the flooding, only to find themselves caught in their attic. A simple small hatchet or axe kept in the attic could have been a crucial lifeline for these people. In any case, if you are in doubt, take the safe path and evacuate if you can. When the storm is over, you can return and change a broken home. You can't replace your family. Chapter 3: How to Survive an Earthquake. In October of 1989, throughout the Loma Prieta earthquake in California, I was at home with my brothers and sisters being cared for by an elderly babysitter. My dad was across town walking down the aisles of the local Costco warehouse, and my mom was driving home from work. Candlestick Park in San Francisco was stuffed with viewers watching a World Series Big League Baseball game. That is when a disastrous 6.9 magnitude earthquake struck and caused freeway overpasses to collapse, landslides to block roadways, structures to collapse, and 57 people tragically lost their lives. Power and water were out for many homeowners for days. If you are like me and have ever resided in an earthquake-prone area, you know that an earthquake can strike at any time. Having the proper knowledge of how to endure an earthquake can save you and your family from potential disaster. What to do once the earthquake happens. An earthquake can produce heavy property damage, topple structures, and serious damage. That is precisely why you should know what to do in the first several minutes of the disaster to save you and your family from possible damage. The most crucial piece of advice I can give you is to stay as calm as possible. Aside from that, by understanding what to do in these types of emergencies, you are going to decrease the amount of panic that sets in right when it happens. When you do not panic, you can think and act plainly, enhancing your chances of surviving the earthquake. Before I get started, there's one more important suggestion to remember. Regardless of at which location you find yourself when the earthquake happens, you must not try to change venues. If you are inside, stay inside. If you are outside, stay outside. You only have several minutes to act, and attempting to change your environment will do nothing but add possible risk. If you are inside. If you are inside when an earthquake hits, don't try to escape the building. Not only is it not likely you're going to securely reach the outside, but the risk for structural issues adds risk to your movement. Truth be told, the outside of a building is just one of the most hazardous places to be located when items are falling. Don't use elevators or stairwells. In addition, remember to keep away from exterior windows whenever possible. Follow these easy guidelines to increase your chances of survival when an earthquake hits. Try to stay toward the interior of the structure. You and your family immediately towards an interior wall. Drop, cover, and hold on. You should drop low to the ground and position yourself under a durable table or desk to safeguard yourself from falling items. When you take cover, make sure to do so away from outside walls and windows. You should also use your hands to cover the top of your head. As soon as you are in position, do stagnate from that spot. Hang on to something near you, like the leg of a desk, for support and wait for the earthquake to end. If there isn't anything to hide under, be sure to position yourself in the corner of an interior wall while embedding your body and using your arms and hands to secure your head. If you are in bed, stay there. Do not try to move through the home. Stay where you are and use a pillow to cover your head. If you are outside, do not ever go immediately back inside if an earthquake occurs when you're outdoors. A building could not be structurally sound, and you would be safer finding shelter close by. You should immediately move away from trees, signs, automobiles, structures, or power lines that could boil down. Transfer to a clear area if it is possible. Hunch down and secure yourself with your hands and arms until the shaking has stopped. After it has stopped, beware when walking around to keep from damaged or falling power lines, trees, or other tall structures. If you are driving when an earthquake happens, pull over to the side of the roadway as quickly as possible. Set your parking brake and try to park in a clear place. Stay away from overpasses, bridges, power lines, big trees, and any other large structure. The outside of your vehicle offers some security from risk, so stay inside the automobile till the earthquake has stopped. When you return on the road, however, be sure to watch out for road hazards. If you are in a public spot, the first thing to recall if you're in a public place is to never ever stress. Never ever run for the door or exits, which can develop panic and mayhem. Stay where you are, stay as low as you can, and look for cover under a table or other tough structures. Cover your head and watch out for falling items. What not to do. Do not stay near kitchen areas or other parts of the house or public place that could be more unsafe. You want to stay clear of all home appliances, fireplaces, heating systems, and other possibly hazardous objects. Understand damaged gas lines to these home appliances may now be leaking explosive gas. Don't make use of landline phones or other electronics till you have been cleared to do so. When you are sure the power and the gas to your house has not been damaged, you can use them again. You shouldn't stand in doorways. Lots of people believe that it is a safe place to be because it is away from things that could fall on you, but it could end up being a source of weakness in a structure and collapse on top of you. Don't mess with power lines. Downed power lines can be exceptionally harmful, so never go near them. You absolutely should never ever try to move them yourself either. If you're driving when the earthquake occurs and power lines have fallen on your vehicle, call for help and don't try to move away from them yourself. Avoid using matches, candle lights, or flame of any sort till your house or the structure has been cleared. If there is a gas leakage or other issue, an open flame is the last thing you really need. Instead, use flashlights or LED candles. What about after the earthquake stops? Even if the tremblings have stopped, stay put for at the very least 10 minutes, if it is safe to do so. Aftershocks can take a minute or two to begin and can at times be more damaging than the earthquake itself. Aftershocks have been known to trigger significant damage and injury, so never move too quickly. Once you are sure the earthquake is over and any possible aftershocks have ceased, you can slowly move from your position while taking notice of any surrounding risks. If you're in your home, safely turn off all power at the control box, as well as your gas valve. Check for fire and other possible threats. You should then make use of a radio, recommended, or phone to listen for emergency situation info, possible dangers, and further directions. The community will issue emergency broadcasts and outline any serious damage sustained in the area, as well as instructions for your safety. Check yourself and others for injuries and follow emergency situation instructions. It can be exceptionally difficult to know what to do throughout an emergency, but staying calm and recalling these suggestions on how to make it through an earthquake can save your life. An earthquake can hit at a minute's notification, but taking the right steps in the first few seconds can stay away from an unneeded injury and damage. While there's not much you can do to prevent natural catastrophes, there is plenty you can do in reaction to them to improve your situation. Chapter 4: Choosing which type of emergency situation food to preserve. The primary step to preparing your family for a long-term catastrophe is to put away a little extra food. But what type should you choose? Should you purchase cases of MREs, meals all set to eat, canned foods, boxes of freeze-dried foods, or dehydrated/dry foods, or a combination? These were the questions that pestered me when I first began to get my family prepared for a natural disaster. In this area, I'm going to go over how long the food will last using each technique and how to find which method makes the most sense for you. Preppers have lots of choices, but here I will concentrate on the most useful and effective methods. Below is a contrast of the different attributes of each type of survival food. That should help you choose which type is best for you and your family. Bear in mind that although all of these foods will store well at room temperature, I have noted the ideal storage temperature for your recommendation. What kind of food to store? Dehydrated versus canned versus MREs versus freeze-dried. A lot of preppers start by saving tons of freeze-dried foods. That isn't always the best method, not to mention it's absolutely not the least expensive. There are many choices in the types of emergency situation food to store. Understanding the advantages and disadvantages when it comes to prepping with each of these kinds of foods will save you time and money. Dehydrated and dry foods. This alternative has a strong following, as it can be done at home and also provides for a remarkably long shelf life, usually 20 years or more if saved correctly. Those mean you do not need to worry about rotating the food. Per calorie, it is also the most inexpensive option. One major drawback is that you are generally limited to storing just standard components rather than finished meals, such as rice, beans, dried fruit, etc. Junk food. Canned foods are by far the simplest to store, as canned products are easily available at your regional supermarket. However, they typically only have a service life of 1 to 3 years. MREs, meals ready to eat. These are good just because each one will offer you with an entire meal. Sometimes the MRE will even include a chemical heating system so your meal comes out piping hot. Those will last a bit longer, usually about 5 years depending upon storage conditions, but are a little pricey and heavy if you plan to carry the food with you in a backpack. Freeze-dried foods. This kind of emergency situation food is also referred to as backpacker's food, since it is a favorite in the backpacking and trekking community due to its very light weight. It's also easy to prepare. Usually, just add boiling water and stir, and each pouch has a finished meal inside. The shelf life of these foods is also decent and is generally in the neighborhood of 7 years or more. The largest downside to keeping freeze-dried food for an emergency situation is the cost, as it is reasonably costly per calorie. In my viewpoint, a diverse method is the best way to be really prepared for any catastrophe and ensure your family is comfortable when trouble hits. Whether it be an earthquake, monetary collapse, cyclone, civil unrest, extremely afflict, pandemic, or flood. which kind of emergency situation food is right for your family. Choosing what kind of food to store is important, and you should do this by considering your practices. Do you eat a lot of canned food generally? And would you be able to rotate through your supplies regularly? If that's the case, then concentrating on keeping canned food and rotating through it may be the best method for you. Their relatively much shorter storage life would not be a problem for you if you happen to be good at rotating through your stored supply. My family does not eat many canned foods typically, and we are unlikely to turn through our supplies regularly. For my family, I truly needed an option where I could store the food away and forget about it. That is why I chose to concentrate on a combination of freeze-dried and dehydrated foods, as these can oftentimes last over 20 years when saved correctly. Another possibility is if you live in a bigger city or any other environment that you know you need to leave as soon as possible when disaster hits, you may be in the circumstance where you need to stay extremely mobile. If that holds true, keeping MREs or freeze-dried backpacking food would be the most rational since they can be quickly consumed while the food offers a respectable shelf life, 5 to 7 years depending on the storage conditions, and they come as complete meals. Consider these factors when you are choosing what's best for you and your particular circumstance. Whichever alternative you choose, it is best to diversify somewhat. For instance, though you might expect to be able to leave the big city rapidly throughout a disaster, there could be times when you need to shelter in place. If that happens, it may be worthwhile to have a 5-gallon container of dried food, like rice, for instance, hidden away in your closet and save your costly MREs for when you do finally have a safe opportunity to leave the area. Making sure the longest possible service life. You should understand the fundamental elements that influence the longevity of food that's stored for long periods of time. This will help you select where you should keep the kind of food that you choose and eventually which kind of food is best to store away for your family. There are several basic aspects that will impact the service life of the food you save: temperature level, light, moisture, and oxygen. The fundamental rule is that you want to keep each of these aspects to a minimum. That is because this is what influences the growth of bacteria in the food. Temperature, in general, should be as low as possible. 40 degrees Fahrenheit is generally optimum. See above sections for storage temperature levels of specific foods. Light must be minimal or non-existent. Germs enjoy light. The food must also stay as dry as possible. This is the reason why dehydrated or dry foods last so long. One research study showed that in most foods, decreasing the wetness content by as little as 1% can double the shelf life. Bacteria also needs oxygen to make it through, so reducing or getting rid of oxygen in the product packaging, the food is saved and will also significantly help to prolong the lifespan. I suggest you store some food from each category: dehydrated and dry foods, canned foods, MREs, and freeze-dried foods. This will ensure you are varied and ready for any circumstance. I suggest you go with a 40, 30, 20, 10% split on the food. Simple to remember as the 4-3-2-1 rule. This split guarantees that you'll have a bit of each kind of food stored away for an emergency situation. 40%. This should be the bulk of your emergency foods and should be whichever kind of emergency situation food that you choose is best for your situation. This should be the type of food that will be most convenient for you to save large amounts of to keep your family alive. 30%. This should be the second best food source that you choose for your family. At this level, you should consider more than just how many calories this type of food offers and how long it lasts. you should consider food that tastes good. That will be the food that makes your family's life a little better at the time of a bad situation and raises their spirits. Do not be scared to include some deals with. Do not be scared to include some deals with to cheer everybody up. 20%. This food you are keeping away so you are a bit varied and ready for any circumstance. For example, if you were planning to shelter in place and were just saving away large 5-gallon containers of rice and beans as the first category, this should consist of light and quickly mobile food like MREs or freeze-dried food. 10%. This is the last type of food and could be last on your list of the kind of food to store for your family. While you might have determined this type of food is not best for your circumstance, it is important that you store a small amount of it away anyways, since we all know that circumstances can change and they seem to do so most suddenly and often throughout a catastrophe. Think of it as a financial investment. Any good financier will tell you that it is necessary to diversify. Therefore, do not feel overwhelmed about getting just the right type of food or just the right portions. That is meant to be just an overview of what I have found is the best way to stay ready for any kind of emergency. Chapter 5. The Best Personal Defense Gadgets for Women. Recently, my daughter left for college. Before she left, she told me she wanted some form of personal protection to carry with her. Any deadly type device was not a choice, so I needed to find some gadgets that would ensure her security while she was away. After some research, I found some special personal defense gadgets that are great for a young woman like my daughter. These easy devices can make the distinction between being a victim or a victor of an attack. The weapon of your preference depends upon the girl herself and what she would be comfortable dealing with in a high-stress situation. 11. Key-shaped folding knife. This cute little dagger is perfect for concealed carrying and quickly turns from a key hanging on a keychain link to a sharp knife all set to strike. This knife is multifunctional and useful in many situations in everyday life, such as using it for a box cutter or as a survival tool in the woods. There's a very real comfort for me knowing my daughter always has a knife on her. I really love that it comes in flashy pink color and blends flawlessly with the rest of her secrets on her keychain. The blade is made of stainless steel and the manage is constructed of aluminum. 10. Kubotan key ring. These little key rings are pretty sweet looking. My daughter made me order one after seeing it. It is a multi-use tool when it comes to a self-defense situation. You can hold it one of two ways to cause damage. The Kubotan can also be used in numerous emergency situations, including but not limited to breaking a vehicle window, and is a very reliable self-defense weapon for any woman. These can be found in lots of different colors and come equipped with a keyring link for adding it onto your keychain. It's lightweight, clips on something you already carry around, and is multifunctional, so it is certainly a win-win with this one. The only disadvantage I can see is that it may only inflict only minor damage to the attacker with a weak strike, and according to reviews, it is a petite fit for hands. 9. Rechargeable stun baton with LED flashlight. Another multi-use tool that could come in convenient in a self-defense situation, a flashlight that doubles as an electronic stun gadget. Seriously, when my daughter has to walk down a dark road in the evening, I certainly wouldn't mind if she were using a flashlight that also had a stun function. This one comes in a flashy pink color. It is available in other colors and has been notched around the edges. This means it will remain in place and won't roll when it's set on the ground. When the stun function is activated, it will send out an electrical existing between the two prongs situated above the flashlight and will create a loud static sound. The sound and sight of the electrical charge alone should be enough to stop an attack, but if not, a quick touch from this little stunner sure will. It comes with a lifetime assurance for any malfunctions or replacements. 8. Pepper spray bracelet. In the times of technology that we live in, everywhere you go, you see the ones with some silicone bracelet or smartwatch. With this clever silicone band, you get a compact pepper spray container concealed in a stylish fashion and can spray 3 to 6 bursts up to 3 feet away. This awesome gadget would be incredibly practical for anybody running, shopping, traveling, or just for everyday life. Pepper spray to the face is a proven way to stop an assaulter instantly. That little viper is quickly used with the press of a button. It would be smart to have backup containers just in case. With this design, you get about 6 sprays out of just one container. 7. Rhinestone pepper spray keychain. I know what you're thinking, but my daughter truly liked the design. If a few rhinestones will convince her to carry this in her bag, then I'm a very happy father. I really love this one because it can be quickly clipped to anything you already carry, such as keychains, bags, or backpacks. The pepper spray comes in bursts up to 10 feet away and can be useful for not only humans, but aggressive animals like dogs, too. The half-ounce container also consists of a UV marking dye to help in identifying the assaulter at a later time. The spray has an easy locking system to stop spills or accidents. 6. Yugo Self-Defense Key Ring. There are so many alternatives for key ring self-defense items, but this one seems effective in a wide range of ways. It is formed to fit comfortably in between your fingers and give you the ability to punch and jab without your hand taking the blunt force of the strike. It's also efficient in being used in emergency situations, such as to break glass or ice. The Yugo is built of a non-toxic polymer and adhesive blend which makes it heavy-duty but not heavy. The metal ring itself can deal with up to 105 pounds of pulling resistance. Without correct training or practice, this weapon could prove ineffective, but thankfully, there are lots of YouTube videos readily available to keep in mind. 5. Sting Ring, electronic stun device. With simple access to a defense weapon in an emergency situation, you'll have a greater probability of escaping rapidly and unhurt. With this sting ring, it just attaches to your key ring and can be brought easily in your hand. The ring wraps around your finger for protected gripping, and with a basic squeeze on the handheld box, it will activate the stun function. You can choose to swing the sting ring while holding your secrets or vice versa. It runs on a lithium-ion battery that's rechargeable. 4. E Major Tactical Pen and Whistle. So far, we have seen various lightweights and quickly concealed products that connect to your keychain. With this one, nevertheless, it can be easily kept in a book bag or clipped to your pocket. This combo package features a tactical pen, 3 refill ink cartridges, and an aluminum whistle. The pen is capable of efficiently writing and also includes a steel suggestion for use in emergencies, such as jabbing or breaking glass. The public will not realize you have a weapon as a result of the fact it looks like a regular ballpoint pen. 3. Bling Sting Panic Alarm Keychain. Another charming, per my daughter, and efficient Bling Sting product. This little gem is easily clipped to your keyring or bag, and with the quick press of the button, you will send out a loud ringing into the air and a flashing light will begin to pulse. The sound will signal a person to your emergency, and the flashing LED light can attract the eyes of others. This works for kids and grown-ups in all circumstances. Since it is so lightweight, it can be carried without very much effort. According to the evaluations on Amazon, there are some drawbacks nevertheless, such as some reviewers stating they'd choose a louder siren sound. 2. Pepper spray gel kit with practice gel. This pepper spray combination includes every little thing you need to go from a novice to a professional sprayer. The package comes with a practice gel and targets that can be used to get acquainted with your new pepper spray. This is really important to get comfortable with using the spray in high-stress situations. This pepper spray is also geared up with a UV marking dye for later assistance in determining the presumed attacker. In a little cylinder, this sprayer loads 25 bursts that are capable of rising to 12 feet, keeping you farther from risk. With the gel formula, there is less of a blowback impact throughout the spray, ensuring it only disables the assailant. 1. The Taser Pulse. This little gadget takes the absolute leading area of all the different tools I reviewed. I ended up buying 2 of these, one for my daughter and one for my wife. That is a civilian variation of a law enforcement taser. Those little appeals are extremely sophisticated devices that shoot out 2 barbs up to 15 feet. They then provide a 30-second long electrical current to the enemy's body. This electrical current is provided in such an exact way by the onboard computer that it entirely disarms the enemy. It does this by temporarily overriding the control of their neuromuscular system. This is called neuromuscular incapacitation, or NMI. This device will deliver a 30-second long incapacitating pulse, lots of time to toss the gadget down and run a safe distance away. After 30 seconds on this gadget, nobody's going to want to continue a fight. Knowing that my daughter has a police-grade taser gadget with her absolutely gives me assurance. That is the top of the line when it comes to personal defense. All in all, women should always be prepared for the unexpected. Women can be very effective and formidable challengers for any assaulter. With the correct precautionary steps, they can put almost anything or anyone on the ground. You don't have to be a heavy player or martial arts master to stop an attack. You just need to have the willpower to put that individual on their rear end. If you don't have the self-discipline, an outstanding old stunner to the chest or a jab to the throat with a stun ring will assist in getting you home securely. Whether you feel more comfortable with a stun gadget or with something lightweight like a keychain alarm, having a little personal backup is never a bad idea. This has been Survival Guide, Emergency Preparedness, Self-Defense, and Survivalism by Jordan Gunner, narrated by J.A. Leidig. Survival Guide, First Aid, and Other Skills for Preppers by Jordan Gunner, narrated by J.A. Leidig. Chapter 1. The Top 10 Ways to Purify Water. One of the top survival priorities in an emergency is to find and disinfect enough drinking water to provide your needs. Whether your dilemma circumstance is unfolding in the desert after becoming lost or in your own home after a natural disaster, the human body can only last 3 days with no drinking water at all. Good thing there are abundant water sources across most of the world, and multiply ways to sanitize the water. Which methods of water processing is right for different situations? Follow along here and find out. Finding a water source. Before you can decontaminate the water, you need to find it. Depending upon your location and situation, water can be abundant or virtually non-existent. Water can come from freshwater surface sources like streams, creeks, ponds, and lakes. If you are able to distill the water, you can even use brackish or salty water as a source. Let's not forget precipitation as an emergency supply of water. Rain, snow, sleet, hail, ice, and dew can be collected for water. Fresh rain that didn't fall through a jungle or forest canopy should be safe enough to drink as is. New snow can be melted for drinking without processing as well. Water that's issuing from springs and other underground sources can likewise be safe in most areas. Water originating from tapped trees like maple or birch can be safe to drink and plentiful in late winter, but most other water sources should be considered filthy and should be sanitized with one of the following methods. Boiling. In order to kill the parasites, bacteria, and other pathogens in the water, the most reputable thing to do is boil the water. Boiling won't evaporate all forms of chemical contamination, but it is still one of the most safe techniques of disinfection. 5 minutes of a rolling boil will kill most organisms, but 10 minutes is much safer. Elevations high enough to affect boiling and cooking times will require somewhat more time over the flame. Boiling can be done over a campfire or stove in a metal, ceramic, or glass container. If no fireproof container is available, heat rocks for 30 minutes in the fire and put them in your container of water. That container could be a rock depression, a bowl burned out of wood, a folded bark container, a hide, or an animal's stomach. Don't use quartz or any river rocks as they can explode when warmed. Distillation. Radiation, lead, salt, heavy metals, and many other pollutants can taint your supply of water after a catastrophe. And attempting to filter them out will only destroy your costly water filter. In a situation where the only water available is very dangerous, there aren't many choices. The most safe resolution is water distillation. Water can be heated into steam, and the steam can then be captured to develop relatively clean water, regardless of its prior forms of contamination, consisting of radioactive fallout. Distillation won't get rid of all possible impurities, like unpredictable oils or certain organic compounds, but most heavy particles will stay behind. For home-based catastrophe survival circumstances, a quick way to make a steam distiller is with a pressure canner and some small diameter copper tubing. The best part of this operation, aside from safe water, is that the canner remains intact. That allows you to move equipments from water distillation to food preservation extremely easily, supplying you aren't dealing with radiation. The only tricky part is getting the copper line fitted to the steam vent on the canner's lid. If in the field, try your luck with solar still, a simple innovation that gathers and distills water in a hole in the ground. To build one, place a square of clear or milky plastic, 5 by 5 or 6 by 6 feet, over a 3 feet deep hole with a clean container centered in the bottom. Run a drinking tube from the container so that you can drink your gathered water without taking apart the whole still. Place dirt around the edge of the plastic at the rim of the hole to seal off the still. Place a rock in the middle of the plastic to produce an approximately 45-degree cone over the container. Dig the still in a warm location and in the dampest dirt or sand available. Add green plants and even urine to the hole to increase its water production. A transpiration bag is a smaller and less efficient variation of this setup, involving a clear plastic bag tied around live plants. Survival straws. One of the smallest, lightest of water disinfecting tools to hit the marketplace lately is the straw style of water filter. More recent models can be used as you would a drinking straw and can also connect to the drain valve on a water heater to clean up the water you may find in a water heater after a catastrophe. They can also fit on a garden tube to filter the water running through it. Do not expect it to filter out every single infection or bacteria that could be growing in there, though, particularly a tube that has been lying in the sun or a water heater full of lukewarm water after an extended power interruption. Many of these filters contain an activated carbon filter element, which not only filters out bigger germs and pathogens, but also removes peculiar tastes and smells from the water. Filters. The two main kinds of water filters in use today are pump action filters and drip/suction filters. The former use a pump to force raw water through a filter cartridge. The latter are filter cartridges that use a gravity drip action, like an IV bag, or are put in line on hydration bladder pipes. When used on a hydration bladder, the user just sucks water through the filter as needed. My preferred for years now is the Katadyn Pocket Filter. It has a ceramic cartridge with silver anchored on the inside. The ceramic filters out the bigger pathogens, and the silver kills or disables smaller organisms like infections. Most filters like this will pump about a quart per minute. If time is not an issue, you may go with a gravity-fed system like the one revealed here. UV light devices. UV light is very damaging to little organisms. When it is used as a disinfection technique, it's remarkably effective. Gadgets like the Sterapin Sidewinder are battery-free, hand-cranked water purification gadgets that interfere with the DNA of illness-causing microbes in simple seconds. There are also some battery-powered Sterapin products that load the same punch on bad bugs and have been field-proven around the globe. Those aren't 100% efficient in water with large floating particles, which pathogens can hide behind or inside. But for clear water of questionable origin, these devices will suffice. SODIS. Solar Water Disinfection, SODIS for short, is a water treatment method that uses the sun's energy for disinfection. The most common strategy is to expose plastic bottles loaded with infected water to the sun for a minimum of 1 day. The sun's plentiful UV light kills or damages almost all biological threats in the water. The advantages to that way of treating water are plentiful. It's easy to use, it is economical or free, and it offers good but not complete or guaranteed bacterial and viral disinfection. Moreover, the approach uses no dangerous chemicals and it doesn't need continuous attention. But there are some problems with the technique. You need warm weather or 2 days of overcast sky to reach the optimum efficiency. You can't use it in the rain. It offers no recurring disinfection. It could be less effective against bacterial spores and cyst phases of some parasites. The water and the bottle need to be clear, and the bottle shouldn't be glass. If that was not bad enough, this method not does anything to assist with chemical contamination, and only small bottles, 2 liters max, can be processed. Sanitizing tablets. 2 of the most common and well-known water disinfection tablets are the Katadyn's MicroPure tablets and Potable Aqua's iodine tablets. They can both work really successfully, but there are some differences. If you're stocking a cabin, cavern, or BOB with purification tablets, you definitely want to consider the lifespan of the item. The iodine tablets from Potable Aqua have a 1-year service life. That's not that bad, but Katadyn's MicroPure tablets last for 2 years or more. While these 2 products are using different chemicals, they both seem better than 99% reliable against waterborne pathogens. Safe and clean aqua is the clear winner when it comes to speed. Water treated with those tablets is all set to drink 35 minutes after treatment starts. The MicroPure tablets take a full 4 hours to achieve their maximum disinfecting action. One last thought to consider are the bad side effects. The toxicity and taste of iodine can be a little problematic. The iodine tablets are usually not a great choice for pregnant women or anybody with thyroid concerns or shellfish allergic reactions. Choosy children are also infamous for failing to drink the iodine infused water, which could cause dehydration and other serious repercussions in an already dicey emergency. The Katadyn product is chlorine based, the majority of which dissipates over the allocated 4-hour waiting period, so that item is widely tolerated and tastes much better. To summarize, the Katadyn MicroPure tablets cost more and take a lot longer to work, but they last longer and are commonly endured. Drinkable Aqua's iodine tablets are cheaper and work faster, but taste worse and do not keep as long. Home chemicals. Either bleach or iodine can be carefully used to sanitize water with good results. Generally speaking, the amount of chemicals you use will depend upon the water quality and temperature level. Cold or dirty water needs a bit more disinfectant, 4 drops per quart, than warm or clear water, 2 drops. After adding the chemical, put the cover back on your water container and shake it for a minute. Then turn the bottle upside down and loosen the cap a turn or more. Let a percentage of water flow out to clean up the bottle threads and cap. Screw the lid back on tight and wipe the outside of the bottle to get the chlorine on all surface areas. Set the bottle in a dark place, or at least in the shade, and let it sit for 30 minutes if the water is clear and at room temperature. When you open the bottle after the designated time, it must smell like chlorine. If not, add another drop or two and wait another 30 minutes. Don't take chances or faster ways with water security. The last thing you need in an emergency situation is dysentery. You can also use the 2 common forms of iodine to decontaminate your water. Iodine is a more hazardous compound than bleach in most people's bodies, but it is an option. To use iodine, it is critical to determine which type you are using. Cast of iodine 2% is actually much stronger than 10% povidone iodine solution. You should use 5 to 10 drops of cast of iodine 2% in 1 quart of water and enable it to sit in the shade for 30 minutes. Again, flush the threads and wipe down the bottle. Be sure to use 5 drops for clear or warm water and up to 10 for cold or cloudy water. Since 10% povidone iodine solution is weaker, you'll really need 8 to 16 drops per quart of water. Again, use fewer drops for nice-looking water and 16 drops for swamp water. Clean the bottle and wait. An added benefit to iodine items is that you can use them for wound disinfections also. Chlorine doesn't serve double duty like this, and you should never put bleach on any wounds. Never mix iodine and chlorine for water disinfection. How to build your own filter. We've all seen the survival books showing a water filter made from charcoal-filled pants hanging from a tripod. Sorry to burst your bubble, but that isn't a reliable system. It will screen out bigger particles, but do not expect bacteria-free and virus-free water to shoot from this gizmo. What could work, however, is a filter made from some flexible hose pipe, glue, and a portion of pine sapwood. The sapwood structure already performs a filtering action in the living wood, evaluating out air bubbles from the tree sap. Untreated, these air bubbles would cause tissue damage. This type of filter has some humanitarians looking hard at conifer wood as a readily available material for water purification devices in developing nations. Researchers have successfully used a 1 cubic inch block of pine sapwood as a water filter. This portion of wood was attached to a supply of water by utilizing a PVC pipe and some epoxy to prevent water from bypassing the wood filter. Flow rates of some quarts a day were reached in their trials, and E. coli was eliminated by 99.9%. Those are the same numbers you will see from straw-style water filters, despite the fact that the wood may allow viruses to go through. Since they're much smaller than bacteria, some water filtering is better than none. Drink it raw. Drinking raw water is definitely a gamble. Even in a beautiful wilderness area, the water can be infected with all types of bowel-churning pathogens. Unless you are fortunate enough to find a spring that is issuing clean water out of the natural water level, drinking unprocessed water is dangerous at best. If there's any way to process the water, it must be tried before you say bottoms up to unprocessed water. However, there are always exceptions. If death from dehydration is near and you cannot treat the water, drink it anyhow. It is better to be alive and sickened with pathogens than dead and pathogen-free. Build a water bottle survival set. A bottle of water can be a valuable commodity to a thirsty individual, but it is not just the water that has worth. The bottle itself can serve many purposes. One of the best uses is as a container for a survival package. Whether you choose a plastic or metal bottle, here are some items to toss inside. The gear. The guts of your water bottle survival package can be intricate and diverse, or down to business. Whatever you stock in the package, it is a good idea to include a fair little bit of redundancy. Backups are always a clever idea when your life may depend on such a small selection of equipment. A folding knife and/or a mini multi-tool. Liquid-filled button compass. Little LED flashlights or squeeze light with an extra set of batteries. A Bic lighter. Ferrocerium rod and tinder tabs. 40 water purification tablets. Signal mirror and whistle. And area blanket. A Fresnel magnifying lens, backup fire starter. 50 feet of 550 cord. Fishing kit consisting of 30 yards of monofilament line, 10 bait keeper hooks of various sizes, and split shot. 4 steel safety pins, 2 large and 2 little. Small emergency treatment package. Some feet of duct tape could be twisted around the bottle itself. A little pouch to hold all of this gear when the bottle is being used to hold liquid. The bottle. One of the best pieces of gear to hit the outdoor market in recent years is the stainless steel single-wall water bottle. This rugged vessel is not only crack-proof and crush-resistant, but it can be used to boil your water to make it safe to drink. Essential note: if you are using a metal bottle to boil water, the bottle needs to be made from either single-wall stainless steel or some other fire-friendly metal like titanium, with no paints or finishings. Do not put an insulated bottle or double wall bottle in the fire. The heat won't go through appropriately, and the vessel will probably blow up. Skip the aluminum bottles as well, because the metal and the finishes can seep bad stuff into your water. If you go the plastic route, choose a wide-mouth bottle for easy elimination of the products. Apart from this, make sure the bottle is made of Lexan plastic, which can deal with higher temperature levels without melting, and add a metal cup that fits over the bottle. This gives you the boiling choice in an easy and versatile container. Chapter 2: Fundamental First Aid Skills for Preppers. If you were ever stuck in a survival circumstance or major disaster, you are going to want to have a grasp of fundamental first aid skills. Knowing just some methods for treating standard forms of trauma is a great ability to have and can quickly save someone's life. Those strategies are simple to understand, easy to perform in the field, and highly reliable. Without Googling it, do you know how to deal with a gunshot wound? a stab injury, damaged bones, or head trauma, it is not as challenging as you may really believe. Here are some situations and first aid needs that may develop, and detailed guidelines for how to handle them. Gunshot wounds. Gunshot injuries are puncture or penetration wounds, so many can be dealt with in the same way that stab injuries are dealt with. Stop the bleeding. If the wound is in a limb, use direct pressure, elevate the limb above heart level, and apply a pressure bandage over the wound. You can also use emergency situation tourniquets to the affected limb. If bleeding still doesn't stop or is in a part where the tourniquet can't be used, like the upper body area, consider loading the injury to stop the bleeding. See the section beneath. Calm and assure the client. Keep the victim covered and calm to avoid shock. The more relaxed the victim is, the slower the heartbeat, which straight results in less blood loss. Check the client for additional injuries. Check other parts of the body for additional injuries. Any obvious places that are exceedingly bleeding should be handled first, obviously. The entry hole will be minimal, but the exit wound, if there's one, will be far more substantial. Do not forget to check for that, if at all possible. Monitor the injury. Once all bleeding has been handled and the injuries are dressed, keep track of the injury for infection as it recovers. Serious injuries that include the head or vital organs need professional medical treatment as soon as possible. Packing the wound to control bleeding. If you are unable to control the bleeding using the prior methods, you can tightly load the bullet hole with gauze. In certain situations, this may be the only way to stop the bleeding and save the individual's life. To do this, perform the following steps. Insert sterilized gauze in the wound cavity. Using one finger, insert sterile gauze directly into the bullet wound, pushing the dressing as deep into the hole as possible. Firmly pack the injury cavity. Largely pack this hole with gauze till the hole is stuffed firmly full, leaving one end of the bandage hanging out so it can be quickly gotten rid of later by medical personnel. Wrap the injury and gauze firmly in place. Wrap a bandage over the top of this wound. That will hold the gauze firmly in the hole that was created from the bullet injury. Stab wounds. Even if a stab injury hits a major artery or important organ, you can still save the individual if you respond quickly. In emergency treatment, in situations with a critical organ injury, it is key to restrict the bleeding till professional help is available. Ensure hygienic conditions throughout the treatment. Wash your hands completely or use latex gloves before touching an open injury to stop infection. Focus on the treatment. If there are several stab injuries, treat from most to least severe. Examine the injury. Examine the extent of the injury. If the cut is minor, use direct pressure for about 10 minutes. Clean and dress the injury. Calm and reassure the client. Speak to the victim to keep them relaxed while you're addressing their injury if they're mindful. Apply direct pressure. If blood is spurting from the injury, apply a compression bandage directly over it. Keep any items in the wound from moving. If there is still an object, like a knife in the wound, don't try to eliminate it. Rather, plaster the wound tightly around the item, making sure not to move it. Crucial. Bandage the item securely in place and then look for medical attention as quickly as possible. If the item is loosely bandaged and permitted to move around, it may trigger added damage. Pack wounds are necessary. Large or open injuries should not be closed once the bleeding stops. Pack them with sterilized gauze and tape over them. Offer aftercare as the injury is healing. Cleaning using an antibiotic lotion and changing dressings is highly important. Broken bones. To help determine if a fracture exists, ask the client to move their limb or area that you think is broken. If there's a fracture, this movement will cause considerable pain, and they might be not able to finish the task. The conclusive way to figure out if there is a damaged bone is to use an X-ray. Since you most likely won't have access to an X-ray, presume that any bone that appears to be fractured or broken is, and treat it accordingly. Paralyze the break. It is very important to keep the limb still. Movement in a damaged bone will cause extreme pain and may furthermore damage the tissue around the break. Consider keeping a fight splint in your first aid set. They load flat and really easy to carry, and are great in immobilizing a broken limb. Legs, arms, or wrists. If the injury is to the leg or arm, you can splint it using anything readily available that's rigid, like a stick, signpost, or even heavy cardboard. Wrap tape or a plaster around the splint to hold it strongly in place. A magazine folded lengthwise into a U shape makes a great stiff splint for an arm. Broken arms or wrists can be further paralyzed by making a triangle sling with any large piece of fabric, or even a belt in an emergency. Knees. Debilitate the knee so that the leg is straight. If aligning the leg triggers extreme pain, bandage and incapacitate the leg in the position it is presently in. Ice and a plaster would also be used to deal with knee injuries. Feet or ankles. A broken foot or ankle can be bandaged and elevated. Apply ice or an ice bag to the ankle after to minimize swelling. See the section beneath for additional information on bandaging a damaged foot or ankle. Ribs. Breaks to the ribs can be debilitated by covering an ace bandage around the chest. Make it tight enough to keep the broken bone in place, but not so tight that they cannot breathe. The bandaged area should extend above and below the damaged rib. If the victim is having difficulty breathing, their ribs may have pierced a lung. Try to find professional help as soon as you're able to do so. Back or neck. If the break is to the back or neck, lay the victim flat and try to keep their head immobile. Check for extending bone. If the bone has broken the skin, do not try to push it back in. Apply direct pressure to stop any bleeding and rinse the wound. Do not scrub it or remove any grit. Attempt to figure out if there's any nerve or blood vessel damage by feeling for a pulse on an area of the body below the injury. If that isn't possible, check that they still have feeling below where the injury is. Last wrap. When the area has been cleaned and examined, splint and wrap the injury as you would a less severe break. To bandage a broken foot or ankle. Bandaging a damaged foot or ankle can be a little tricky. Here are the essentials on how you can get this done in the field. Start just right below the toes, covering the plaster around the foot tight, but not tight enough to cut off flow. Just before you reach the heel, cover the bandage over, under, and around the ankle in a figure 8 3 or 4 times to better secure it. Complete the bandaging by wrapping the rest around the lower calf and fasten safely. Head trauma. Head injuries are difficult. The victim may look all right, but have internal bleeding. A minor head wound that isn't bleeding can normally be treated with an ice bag and mindful monitoring of the victim for any changes. If the head injury is more serious, the victim might pass out, have blurred vision, vomit, get into a seizure, or if have one or both pupils fixed and not reacting to light. Assess the client. If the person is unconscious, search for a pulse and a heartbeat and try to determine if their air passage is open. Carefully turn them on their side to prevent choking. Keep their head and neck incapacitated till they restore consciousness. Deal with any bleeding. If the injury is bleeding, use direct pressure until the bleeding stops. Dress the wound and use ice or a cold pack over the dressing. The only time you should stay away from that is if the injury is deep or if you think there is a skull fracture. Just cover it with a gauze pad and a tidy dressing. Keep the client still and calm. Check the pupils for a response to light. That will help you deal with the intensity of the head injury. Serious head injuries could trigger one pupil to be a different size than the other, or the two pupils to respond differently to light. Another method for examining the severity of a head trauma is to ask the client basic questions, such as how many quarters are in a dollar? What year is it? Where are you now? If they're unable to answer or provide answers that don't make sense, the head injury should be considered severe. Use a painkiller as needed. Moderate pain can be treated with an over-the-counter pain reliever. Flu or other contagious diseases. Dealing with someone who is strongly ill or infectious can be very harmful for the individual giving the care. The risk or transference of the sickness is always present. When taking care of somebody in this condition, take precautions to ensure that you remain safe. Sequester the patient. Keep the contagious person restricted to a space or area from others, if possible. Keep the client hydrated. Ensure that they stay hydrated, even if it's only with little sips of water. An individual can go without food for a very long time, but not fluids. Feed the client if possible. When they have had the ability to go some hours with no puking, try feeding them something simple to digest, such as dry crackers or unbuttered toast. Keep the client and yourself clean. Practice good health, including regular hand cleaning, to prevent the spread of any infectious diseases to yourself or others. Be sure to use protecting gear like gloves or deal with masks as proper. Properly dispose of soiled linens. Dispose of all used tissues and other paper products in a Ziploc bag. Decontaminate outfits, linens in the area of care. When the infectious period has passed, usually within a week for the influenza, decontaminate the area with a disinfectant. Wash all outfits and bedding in hot water with soap. Add a little bleach to prevent recontamination. Use of medications. Refrain from giving your patient anti-diarrhea or anti-nausea medications unless they are in severe risk of dehydration or it continues for more than a day or two. If the problem is a virus, that is the body's way of getting rid of it. Only give medication for fever if it goes over 103 degrees, and they can keep medication down without a problem. The painkiller should be something that won't distress their stomach, like acetaminophen, Tylenol. Off-brand bandages, acetaminophen, allergic reaction medication, easy lotions, and adhesive tape can usually be found for less than $1 each at the grocery or dollar stores. This is a great way to start your emergency treatment kit on a spending plan. Hypothermia. Hypothermia does not just happen from being caught in an icy or snowy area. It can happen from being out in a cold rain for an extended period or from being immersed in cold water for too long. The goal is to prevent more heat loss while gradually warming the body. Any level of hypothermia means you should take it easy with the victim. Their heart can fail if they're moved around way too much. Move the victim to a warm area. Do this slowly and carefully, ensuring to avoid any jerky movements. Eliminate wet clothes. If their clothing is wet, eliminate it and cover them with any dry clothing, towels, thermal blankets, and even temperature. If nothing is available and they're outdoors, shelter the area as much as possible. Provide warm liquids. Mindful patients can be given sips of any drink that's hot and sweet. that provides fuel to help the body warm internally. Apply warmth to crucial areas of the body. If the client is not able to move, apply hot packs or a hot water bottle to the underarms and groin area. When the hypothermia is advanced to the point where the individual is unconscious, search for breathing and a pulse. Continue with the warming procedures till they end up being responsive. Throughout the last of hypothermia before death, hypothermia stage 4 or HT4, the victim might appear dead, but still have a faint pulse. Continue with all previous actions and monitor for a heartbeat often. Shock. If someone has suffered any serious injury, assume they are in shock and treat them accordingly. This will help stop further damage or trauma in addition to dealing with or stopping shock. Position the client. If the victim is conscious, raise their legs above heart level, about 16 inches. When the individual is unconscious, ensure to turn their head to the side to prevent choking on saliva or vomit. Do not raise the legs if they are bleeding, have a damaged leg, or a head injury with bleeding. Loosen up any limiting clothes. That will help the client unwind and ensure good blood flow. Maintain body temperature level. Just try to maintain a steady body temperature that's neither too hot nor too cold. Keep them or yourself still and calm. This is the most vital part of treating shock. Provide emergency treatment if needed. Proceed with emergency treatment as needed to treat the injury itself. What remains in your emergency first aid set? To look after medical emergencies, you're going to really need some emergency treatment supplies. The fundamental kit you picked up at Walmart is not going to cut it for a gunshot wound. These are the things you should stockpile on to make sure you're prepared for anything. You should keep every little thing in a pretty big, compartmentalized container, like a fishing take-on or craft supply box that is simple to carry. Make one kit for your home and one to keep in your automobile. And if you have bug-out areas, stock sets in those areas too. It does not hurt to put together a smaller-sized emergency situation kit that you can cart around in your purse or backpack. You never know when you might really need it, or where you will be when you do. Necessary medical supplies. ACE plasters in a variety of sizes. Band-aids in different sizes. Compression bandages and pressure plasters. These are for use with gunshot or stab wounds. Medical or adhesive tape. Antibiotic ointment. Little, sharp knife with a pointed idea. Anti-itch lotion. Hand sanitizer and/or antibacterial soap. Finger splints. Scissors. Rubbing alcohol. Peroxide. A bulb syringe for flushing or suctioning out wounds. Immediate ice packs. Thermal blanket. The foil blankets they give to marathon runners are ideal. They are little, lightweight, and highly portable. Safety pins in multiple sizes. Gauze pads and rolls of gauze. Cotton balls and swabs. Butterfly bandages to close wounds in various sizes. Thermometer. Ziploc bags in numerous capabilities for disposal of biohazards. Duct tape. You should constantly have a few rolls of duct tape. It does so many things and it's waterproof. Sterilized eye wash. Sterilized injury dressing. Tweezers. Personal prescription medications. Painkiller for children and adults. Ipecac syrup to induce vomiting. Small LED light or flashlight. Wooden matches. If you dip them in melted wax, they'll still be usable even if they get wet. Non-reusable latex or artificial gloves. Always use these when dealing with body fluids or dealing with injuries. Medications. Honey. It's a natural antibiotic, antifungal, and antibacterial, and it never spoils. Activated charcoal. Great for taking in contaminants that may have been consumed. Anti-diarrhea medication. Laxatives. Antihistamines like Benadryl. Aloe gel and or burn ointment. Broaden your medical skills. Almost all communities offer free first aid accreditation courses through schools or regional health departments. If you haven't already taken one, I highly advise it. Sign your members of your family up too. Do not make them rely solely on your knowledge. You can pick up some good information, such as how to do CPR, how to perform the Heimlich maneuver, standard bandaging techniques, how to recognize the signs of a heart attack or stroke. Dealing with serious injuries in real life isn't like how it's portrayed in the movies. You really need some beyond basic knowledge and a cool head under pressure to make it through. If you can pick up the essentials of emergency situation injury care, you can even improvise things like bandages, splints, and tourniquets on the fly. Remember to keep overcoming the problem and do not get overwhelmed. That is easier said than done when your loved one is panicking, terrified, or in pain, but it is important that you stay focused. Chapter 3. How to dependably find water in the desert. Is there truly water in the desert? Of course there is. It's understandable that one might assume the desert is a dry and barren wasteland at initial glance. You're not very likely to see puddles, lakes, ponds, or other standing swimming pools of water like other areas. However, just because you can't see the water after a brief glance, it doesn't mean water does not exist. Desert animals and plants need water like any other living thing. Even the smallest plants growing in the fractures of a dry desert landscape need water to survive. The rule is, if there's life, there's water. The issue is that most people simply do not know where to look, or they forfeit prematurely. Let's fix that, shall we? An apparent way to find water is to track where the large animals go. It is sound guidance in most survival situations, but in the desert, there's an issue with that tactic. Many bigger desert animals do not come out in the blistering heat of the day. Frankly, you shouldn't be out then either. Still, finding and tracking animals during the night is tough in more hospitable areas, so trying to do so in the desert is a nightmare. It's cold, you're most likely lethargic from dehydration already, and it is hard to see. That doesn't mean that beings of the desert can't help you, however. You just really need to think literaler. Flying insects. Many individuals neglect insects or try to repel them. This is an error in the desert. Yes, they can carry illnesses, and they can give painful bites that have the potential to get contaminated. On the other hand, they're also great water detectors. If you see a cloud of flying bugs, chances are good there is water close by. Bees are a particularly fortunate find. They tend to fly straight from the hive to water, which means you'll spend less time looking. Ground pests. Ground insects are a little harder to find since they're camouflaged so well and tend to hide when they feel vibrations from your footsteps. Without the advantage of wings and light bodies, they need to conserve energy. That means that sticking close to the house and staying near water. Bear in mind that one bug isn't an indication of water, but seeing some in a small radius generally means water neighbors. Lizards and snakes. While not always an indication of immediate water, reptiles are a simple way to find what you really need. Their tracks are easy to find in the sand, and they'll typically burrow or sun themselves near insect nests or high activity parts. As I have mentioned already, pests stay near water. Discover the reptiles, and it's just a matter of time before you find the insects and the water also. Birds. Though birds can fly long distances and may hunt further from home than bugs and reptiles, they're still an excellent way to find water. Not only do they need to stay hydrated themselves, they will spend a good amount of time searching insects, lizards, and little desert rodents that live near a water source. I like to think of birds as the desert's mobile signboards. They may be miles away, but if you see birds circling around high in the air, you know there is water that direction. The best time to find flocks of birds is early in the morning and right before the sun decreases. Find dense green plant life. Even a single plant means there's water somewhere. Granted, the more plant life you see, the better your chances of finding water for yourself, but you're more likely to see a single plant first. You could be at the very edge of where the water is, so look for plant life that gets gradually thicker or greener. Follow the signs, and you might find yourself in the middle of a lavish greenbelt at the edge of a stream or underground water source. Find a tree, any tree. Because trees take so long to grow, you can bet that water is nearby if you identify a big tree in the distance. Willows and cottonwoods are especially nice to find, but any broad-leafed tree is a godsend. They often have water at their bases. If you don't find a spring or watering hole close by the tree, dig down by the roots and the hole should fill with water. A nice reward to finding a very large tree in the desert is the shade it will provide when the sun is at its highest. Check the stumps in downed trees. Downed and dead trees usually absorb and hold water. If you see insects entering and out of a hole in a tree or big stump, there might be water stored inside. Do not just reach in. That's how horror films start. Rather, connect some cloth to the end of a long stick and poke it inside the tree. If it comes out wet, you know you've hit the mark. Squeeze that water into a container and choose round 2. Dig in dried riverbeds and ponds. If you discover a dried riverbed, stream, or pond, you might be able to find water just beneath the surface. While the surface water has already vaporized, if you find wet sand some inches down, it means there's more water a little much deeper. Keep digging. The best area to begin digging is right in a bend. That is where water has worn down the bank and is more than likely to have gotten stuck and settled into the bed. When you have a deep hole and it seems getting sufficiently wet, cover the hole so desert critters can't contaminate your water hole and wait a few hours. When you return, it will most likely have lots of water. Look on and around rocks. Since rock is generally impermeable to water, you can usually find small amounts of water hiding in and around rock developments. Search in the dividing lines between rock formations and in any natural dips or chips in the shade. You can also check below ground, right where the rock slopes into the soil or sand. Water may have settled underground on the rock's base. If there is no huge rock developments, you may still have the ability to find water under bowling ball-sized rocks, partially buried in the sand. It cannot hurt to check under the smaller ones also. Just take care. Scorpions like to hide under rocks. Find desert trails. If you can't find any signs of water in your immediate area, look for desert routes left by animals, dried up running water, or other survivors. If a path seems well worn, it's likely you'll find water at the end. Just follow the path cautiously. You never ever know what is waiting on you around the bend. Animals, other survivors, or an unforeseen drop into a sandy void can put a damper on your day. Check the hills. Water will always come to rest at the lowest point in the landscape. This suggests that if you see hills, you could find water at the base. Even if you do not find water there, the hill is still a great tool. Climb to the top for a better view of the surrounding area. Look for other signs of water, like distant birds, trees, green belts, and dried streams or ponds. Search north-facing canyons. Since canyons are the most affordable point, they tend to fill when the rain falls. North-facing canyons get the advantage of shade for most of the day, which slows evaporation of any water that exists. Obviously, if you find water here, it might be stagnant and murky from sitting for a while. Ideally, you've got some filtration techniques on hand. Collecting wetness from plant leaves. You can use a plant's natural vapor releasing action to get some sips of water. Place a plastic bag over a plant. Put a small pebble into the bag to create a low area for water to gather. Then connect the bag comfortably around the stem. Check the bag at the end of the day. You will not get a lot of water with this technique, and it's not a fast repair, but a mouthful of water is better than absolutely nothing. Consuming cactus water. Do not believe every little thing you see on television, folks. The worn-out old trope of the desperate cowboy cutting into a barrel cactus and consuming some good cool water is a hazardous Hollywood lie. Barrel cacti aren't huge friendly barrels of water waiting to rehydrate you. While you can find wetness inside cacti, it's not just water and it's not easy to get. The liquid you get from mashing cactus flesh is high in alkalis, which will significantly tax your kidneys and increase your suffering. You could wind up vomiting and feeling nauseous during a time where you need to keep your wits and your fluids intact. There is one type of barrel cactus that will not make you immediately wish for death. That's the fishhook barrel, Barrel cactus wislizeni. It can still cause some gastric upset, and it tastes like bitter ass, but it is not poisonous like the others. It is mostly found in south central Arizona and northern Sonora, Mexico. You can, in some cases, find them in New Mexico and Texas as well. They have to do with 2 feet in size with wickedly hooked spinal columns, therefore the name. The yellow or red flowers and the fruit only grow at the top of the cactus. All cactus fruit provides some nutrients and a little bit of hydration, and it is not as likely to make you ill. The spines and irritable hairs can cause injuries, so burn those off with some seconds in a fire. If you don't have a fire, you can still peel the spinal columns away with a knife. It's a long process and not likely worth the effort if you have other alternatives for water. If you do opt for chomping on cactus fruits for hydration, they're generally simple to find because of their bright red and yellow colors. One of the best types is a prickly pear because it grows so well in a wide range of climates and is easy to identify. It's a staple in Central American diets, but it is also found in the Southwest United States, Australia, the Galapagos Islands, and in Northern Africa. Some have been seen growing as far north as British Columbia. Gathering dew in the desert. An often overlooked desert water source is morning dew. While each individual bead is not much to look at, collecting morning dew can save your life. There are several tested techniques for collecting dew, but do not be scared to experiment with new methods together with these tried and true ones. Method 1. Hang clothing on a post, stick, plant, or rock overnight. It really is that basic. The fabric will take in the dew and you can wring it into a cup, bowl, bottle, or straight into your mouth in the early morning. You should wring the water out before the sun gets too hot, or it will rapidly vaporize. Approach 2. If you have mesh inside your clothes, bag, or any of your gear, you can use that to collect dew. Remove the mesh from your gear and stretch it between 2 sticks, trees, or rocks. Point it at a high angle and stick the bottom of the mesh inside a bowl, canteen, or other container. Just like a spider's web, the mesh will catch fog and dew. Gravity will help direct the dewdrops down into your collection container. You can also use a fabric to soak up the dew from the dew catcher. Approach 3. Cactus spinal columns aren't just for defense. They're created to catch water from rain and fog, then direct it toward the base of the plant. Just use a small bit of clothing during the morning to take in dewdrops from cactus and other desert greenery. Squeeze the cloth into a container or directly into your mouth. That is a long and sluggish process, but it can keep you alive when you can't find water anyplace else. Using a stay with find water, dousing. The old practice of dousing has passed many names: water witching, jerking, and just the gift. It's all about using a stick or other little object to find water. I don't have any personal experience with it, but I do know some preppers who swear by it. It's because of those unfaltering believers and some intriguing supporting research that I'm including dousing in this article. After all, if I'm ever stuck in the desert with no water and no other options, I won't let skepticism be the death of me. While most experts really believe this is still just pseudoscience or simple wives' tale, there was one German research study into dowsing that raised some eyebrows. Throughout 10 years in the 1990s, scientists paired dowsers with geologists in some dry places to test the precision of the dowsers. In a surprising twist, scientists found that dowsing was precise. Well drillers found water 96% of the time thanks to dowsers' strategies. They did not just forecast where water would be located, however. They also told drillers how much would be there and about how deep it would be. If you'd love to give it a shot, here's what you really need to do. Find a Y-shaped stick. The best sticks are about 12 to 16 inches long. Hold the short ends, the top of the Y, with one branch in each hand. Be sure to use a questionable hold where your palms and heels of your hands are skyward. The long end of the stick, the tail of the Y, should be dealing with straight in front of you. With a somewhat loose grip, start to gradually move the surface. Focus on the dowsing rod, and when you feel it begin to pull downward, you're getting near water. Some dowsers declare that you need to tighten your grip as you get closer to the water source, or you will drop your stick. Apparently, the pull on the stick isn't only visible, but hard to miss. Consuming your urine. I have covered the subject of drinking your own urine for survival in detail in a former post, since that's just the sort of girl I am. Gross, I know, but it deserves pointing out here. Yeah, you can drink urine for survival, but it must be your outright last option. There are a lot of ways to disinfect urine before drinking it, so if you can do so, go all out. If your only option is drinking it straight from the tap without any filtration, make certain you've tried all other hydration choices first. The moment you begin drinking your urine, you don't have long before it ends up being hazardous, as it will put considerable pressure on your kidneys. Eventually, it will dehydrate you farther. Nevertheless, consuming your urine might purchase you an additional few days in a tight situation before returning to haunt you. Digging holes for water. Although I mentioned this in a previous area, it's worth mentioning that you can dig a hole in any area you believe there to be wetness below the surface. Generally, the deeper you dig, the more wetness you will find. This is most likely the most reliable way to find water. Using the information above, find an area that is more than likely to contain wetness in the dirt, then start digging. If you don't have a shovel to dig with, use a sturdy stick or broad, flat rock. You can cover your hands in your shirt or other fabric if you don't have a shovel, stick, or rock. That will pay for some defense to your tender skin. Dig down roughly 1 foot. If the sand or dirt is still dry after 1 foot, try a different area. If it perspires, there's water much deeper down. Keep going. Sand can rapidly fill your watering hole, so scoop it out with both arms and push it well away from the edge. Patting the sides of your hole can help fortify the edges and prevent caving. If you do not have a cup, bowl, or bottle, Use your shirt or other material to soak up water from your source and wring it out into your mouth. Underground water sources are not as likely to be infected by animal feces or parasites, but that does not mean it is safe. Always filter your water if possible. It may take some hours for your hole to fill with water. Be very patient with this. This has been Survival Guide, First Aid and Other Skills for Preppers by Jordan Gunner, narrated by J.A. Leidig.